something that they know clearly from the onset is something fraudulent, and then they come and cry foul later.
Yes, it's the right thing to do, because even under the circumstances, they were actually hoping to sell some ammunition.
It's okay, but you know what you're doing.
They did know what they're doing, but they hadn't planned to lose the money. So they're not complaining about being supposedly fraudulent themselves. They are complaining about losing
Somebody being more
somebody
smarter
being
than
cleverer
them
than them. Yes,
in the fraud game.
Okay, why don't I give it context? An African being cleverer than them.
Imagine being hoodwinked by an African.
That may not go down very well.
Because this thing, so you come in, you are not going directly to the government. You're seeing somebody who is, okay, well, maybe in America, this is what they call lobbying. So you're using a lobbyist to introduce you to the right officers and the right people, to place you in the right place so that you can now sell your case and secure this contract. And you give this guy 11.5 million shillings. When you give him 11.5 million shillings, are you going to factor it in your cost of business?
This is the thing. They thought
Which means that you're going to charge the taxpayer this 11.5 million
There's
shillings.
a little more to this story than I think meets the eye. Why I'm saying this is people of this sort, even as I am making fun of them, usually tend to be careful, and they will have done due diligence. So, I mean, of all the people they could have chosen, there's a reason why Echesa seemed plausible.
People of this sort are not always with due diligence.
No, they are not. But remember,
they always look at the easiest way to get into the deal.
It is true, but they also calculate the risks and they determine what it is that would be a reasonable loss. All business people who do this. Now, if they're new to this African market or Kenyan market, then you could say it was easy for them to be duped. But if they're people who've been doing business, they would know that, in all honesty, you are not going to wake up in the morning.
But have they been duped? Really? This is what the DCI is going to establish.
No,
but what's their complaint? What's
their
complaint
that
here?
is the exact complaint.
We gave you 11.5
million. We thought that this business would start. We thought that at least we would be the ones to then supply. It has not happened. We've given the money and we don't have any response so far in terms of what is going to happen. That was their bone of contention. So it would seem as if they were duped. And mind you, they are in the country to help with the investigations on this thing, right? So they're presenting themselves and presenting a case, and they're here saying, we are going to actually help you find out what happened. And the government is going to keep them around until they figure out what's going on.
I think also the government should be investigating such.
I think the police should be investigated too.
While we are talking about investigations, we have on page 10 of the Standard, the AGDs own 63 billion health ministry deals. In essence, they're saying that they were not consulted when these deals were signed by Afia House and other parties like the counties
Isn't that just absurd, though?
So, if you're talking about monies and the issues surrounding it, if you look at page 9, Mombasa County officials have 10 days to pay 18.5 million to a lawyer who rendered services to the then Municipal Council of Mombasa, and whose debts were then taken over by the county government of Mombasa.
Yep.
And they've been given 10 days to either pay or go to jail. Simple.
Choose.
So if we're talking about money being owed and deals going wrong, on that same page 10, billions wasted in state medical projects. Kenyan taxpayers have lost billions of shillings in government-managed equipment, MES programs, a new report has shown. This was introduced in 2015, and as they say, the amount of monies that have been lost, well, they say it.
This is also for the same. It's the same story, right?
This is the same story. And you're talking about General Electric, 23.8 billion. Philips Medical Systems, 3.6 billion. Belco SRL, 2.3 billion. Esteem Industries, 8.8 billion. Senchen Mindari Biomedical Limited, 4.5 billion. Sysmex Europe, GmbH, 2.9 billion. Those are the billions that Kenyans have lost.
Isn't it dizzying? And this is, the thing is, I think it's the top layer. These are the ones that that have been reported, that have been brought to the fore. What really is going on?
And these are the figures that you can actually prove.
Yeah.
What about other things that happened
that have happened that you can't prove?
Okay, so here is a case. This is a serious one. This one of the AG. So the Solicitor General is the one who went to Parliament. He's the one who was speaking here. He says the Office of the Attorney General became aware of the existence of this contract after the National Treasury wrote to us on December 14th, 2017, yet by then they had already signed on October 2nd. Treasury was seeking legal clearance to issue a government letter of support in respect of the contract. That is how we got to know of the contract. Like,
Okay.
No.
how is the government
that's
getting
what you
into a
call loss
contract
for words, yes.
without the AG's
Yes.
input?
How?
Who drafted this contract? How?
But
people here who are
it's
just-
not difficult to
they're games.
explain. If you remember,
There are games. I don't
the
believe
fourth
this.
estate, or should we say the fifth estate, at play here, Ministry of Finance, Treasury.
Yes.
We were told that these people act on their own
They're an
volition.
arm unto themselves.
Unto themselves, yes. There is like not just an arm, an independent arm. And this particular article that we're reading seems to point in that direction. They make a decision, sign off
This
on
is
it,
serious,
and
you
then
guys.
bring in the AG.
This is serious.
Just in case
The
you're wondering.
AG says his office was kept in the dark as the
Yes.
Ministry of Health went into agreements with foreign and local companies for the leasing of the equipment. The Mr. Kariuki, that's Kehara Kariuki, the AG, says on evaluating one of the contracts, he realized that it contained terms that were highly skewed against the government, exposing the state to litigation for compensations in the event the tender was cancelled. He said other clauses of the contract had been seen were not based on the contents of tender documents as required by procurement law, thus making them illegal. So,
No. How is it that
This-
something?
no,
No. How is it?
no, no,
How
no,
is
no,
it
I'm
that
not
something
buying.
like
I am
this
not voting.
happens under without the knowledge or
The
information
Attorney
of the
General.
AG's office?
how?
Something that is basically going to hold the country to ransom in the very near future, and you were not aware. In terms of contracting, you had no idea what was going on, and then suddenly we see this medical equipment, which, by the way, is a scandal, is another story on its own. A huge scandal. We had Mutula Kilonzo here in the office, in the studio the other day, and he talked about how his office was trying to shine light on this medical equipment leasing scandal. A huge scandal, folks, and you can't tell me that the AG had no idea. I'm sorry. Tell me something else.
All right. Okay. Why don't we just add a little salt to the wound, Okay. According to the Auditor General, this you're talking about the 2017-2018 fiscal year, 7 counties had unsupported document. I mean, they went through a process which did not have the provisions that were required to support such procurements. That is the Public Finance Management Act of 2013. They didn't. Meaning, these 7 counties, let's name them: Nakuru, Uasin-Gishu, Nandi, Nyamira, Siaya, West Pokot, and Vihiga. And let me tell you the amounts attributed. Nakuru 4.6 billion, Uasin-Gishu 1.8, Nandi 1.4, Nyamira 1.4, Siaya 1.3, West Pokot 1.2, Vihiga 0.9 billion. And this was spent.
Come.
The Ministry of Health. What?
Yeah.
You go into contracts, you do not involve the Attorney General. So this thing, I thought this was a government thing.
If the Ministry of Finance, the Treasury had not written to the AGs, all right? But look at the circumstances. They've already signed off on it.
As in it's a done deal.
Yes, because remember,
Yeah.
they are the ones who actually release the money, not the Ministry of Health. It's them. So they've signed off on it saying, okay, we are buying these things, or we're doing whatever it is we're supposed to do. And then you go to the AGs.
And that is only just to get that legal clearance, eh?
Yes.
Because it's
a requirement. Yes.
So wait.
And without which you
Abu, give us this letter, haraka. We have a
Shamalize-
contract. Eh?
Yes,
You can be
tafadhali.
sure that's exactly how it happened.
We have a contract we are dealing with. How is... Good
If
Lord. I
this
think
is
this
the
is one
case-
of those... Every government must have its own. Eh? So we had Anglo leasing, we had Goldenberg. Now this is it, I think. This is not even Kimorer. Okay, Kimorer and all. You can look at those. But this, how can it be hatched by a ministry and then another ministry is involved and...
No, another ministry has a primary role in ensuring that not even that it moves on, that it starts. Because before you actually talk about procuring, there's the discussion on contracting, isn't
contracting.
it? Yes. Now, in this very studio, you've heard the number of times we've talked about contracting and how we actually get shortchanged at that phase. The AG's office is querying the contract. But on a personal note, it hasn't stopped raining for the SG of the Jubilee Party, Raphael Tuju. Now, the court in the UK paves way for the seizure of his assets over a 1.5 billion that was owed to the African Development Bank. and he's gone to court again to stop it. And at a time when he's in hospital.
No less.
Is this bad luck?
Or chance.
Or is it just decisions that one has made and the financial turmoils that sometimes come to you unbidden?
Those ones are just those financial turmoils. Let's see what happens to them. I mean, the man is in hospital. He was airlifted and brought to Nairobi, right?
Yes, and
he's at the current hospital. What's the fate of the driver who was in bad critical shape?
So he's still in hospital, in stable condition now, from what we've
Which
been able
hospital?
to read. At Kijabe, actually.
Oh, so he was left there.
He was left in Kijabe. Everybody
helicopter-
else in the accident
Helicopter
was left
couldn't
at
fit
Kijabe.
this person.
No, unfortunately.
In critical
there
condition.
was not enough space.
Okay. So the driver and everybody else could not fit there. The government official, VIP, gets VIP treatment.
Bodyguard remained at Kijabe.
And bodyguard also remained at Kijabe.
Yeah.
VIP is given that treatment and brought to hospital.
Yep.
This is something we must also discuss at some point, really, surely. What are you showing people?
Your life is more
It's
important.
called insurance cover. If yours has one that enables you to be airlifted, you'll be airlifted.
This is
We
a
also
police
saw
helicopter.
that, but we also saw that it was a
It's a
directive
police-
from the
it's-
president.
yeah, it's a
the
police
president is
helicopter.
actually the one who said he'd be airlifted after he got a call by CS Amina and said he should be airlifted immediately to Nairobi.
20 minutes past 6 o'clock. Let's take a look at weather, and the conversation continues.
94.4 Spice FM. Nairobi. The weather with Spice FM.
Partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi today at 17 degrees. We see high of 25 and a low of 15. In Kisumu today at 20 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, of course, through the day with an expectation of rain later. 27 degrees in Mombasa right now, highs of 32 with rain showers expected later in the day. In Eldoret at 14 degrees, cloudy morning, and we'll have highs of 24 and lows of 12. In Nyeri at 16 degrees, rain expected very early in the day, throughout the day, for highs of 24. Coming to Nakuru at 15 degrees, expecting partly cloudy conditions through as well. Malindi at 28 degrees right now, expect rain through the day with highs of 32 and lows of 27. Looking further afield in Kampala, we see 20 degrees, highs of 29 with partly cloudy, mostly cloudy conditions through the day. In Dar es Salaam, we see also a warm day, 20 degrees, partly cloudy conditions through the day today. Further afield, then we take a look at Lagos with haze again this morning, 25 degrees, and the highs of 36 and lows of 22. In Johannesburg with 16 degrees, high of 28 and a low of 16. We'll take a look at London, where we see currently 6 degrees, highs of 12 and lows of 6 with mostly cloudy conditions today. And of course, then looking at what's happening in New York, 6 degrees, highs of 6 and lows of -1.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation in the room. We have Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Nduoko. On this Valentine's Day, we're taking a look at what's been covered in the headlines of the papers. What's the big news of the day? Page 19 of the Standard, landlord on the run after tenant's death. So this is a story of something that happened in Kawangware. So apparently there's this young man who inherited a piece of land and some houses from his parents. It has about 80 structures in this small piece of land. 80, right? Mabati structures. He had a tenant. One of these tenants is a young man called Warren Jirongo. So Warren Jirongo, who was working, just doing menial jobs, was unable to pay rent for a couple of months. So they had an altercation with the landlord, whose name is said to be John Nganga. And one of these days, then people get into Jirongo's house and they find Jirongo on Tuesday morning lying on a couch in a single room iron sheet house covered with a bed sheet and facing the ceiling. He had injuries on his bloodied face and dried blood covered his lips. It seemed like he had been hit on the back of the head. He was bleeding, and when we tried to lift him, blood oozed from the mouth, according to a resident who only identified himself as Alex. So Immediately, the neighbors and residents pinned it on the landlord and said the landlord is the one who's killed the man because they had some serious altercations before and even on this day. I had someone say that a token meter had been stolen, and I came back the next day. I heard that Jirongo was dead. So there had been an altercation between the landlord and the tenant. The man is dead. People were so irate, they torched the entire 80 units to the ground, and the landlord has gone missing. Rent arrears, 3,000 bob.
Enough to result in death? Of course, that's a question that will come
Well,
out.
you know something? That's what is being put forward. We don't know. There's so much we don't know. We don't know anything about this individual. We don't know what else he's involved in. I mean, what we do know is the gentleman has passed away.
Yep.
And he passed away in this structure. But other things that... Because the assumption seems to be that the landlord was involved in his death. But do we really know whether he was involved or not?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't.
We don't.
Yes.
I'm just saying that there was, this scuffle back and forth. There's a token meter that had gone missing, and the landlord is accusing the deceased of having stolen it. He had also said he had locked the house because this man has not paid rent. Comes and finds that the man has broken into the house, and then the man is found dead in that house. Now Mr. Nganga has gone missing, and police and residents are looking for him, and they're accusing him of killing this man. Very unfortunate incidents that happened over a very short period of time.
And all his 80 structures kaput.
Yes.
Gone.
Still on the same page, there's a Kenyan who's suspected of killing 12 elderly people in the U.S. who will face trial on April 5th, 2021. The Dallas Morning News has reported Billy Chemirmir, 47, is said to have committed the offenses in Collin and Dallas counties. Chemirmir, originally from Eldama Ravine, faces 12 counts of capital murder and 2 counts of attempted capital murder. He's facing the death penalty for the deaths of at least 2 victims, an 81-year-old who died in 2018, a 19-year-old who died in 2016. Chemirmir has been in custody since March 2018. He is maintaining his innocence and is being held in a Dallas jail after failing to raise 1.17 billion shillings bail.
Wow.
$11.6 million bail. Besides the 12 deaths, he's also facing civil lawsuits linking him to 10 others. The families of the 10, according to the Dallas News, have produced police records or amended death certificates stating that investigators have said they believe Chemirmir killed their loved ones. Smothering the residents and taking jewelry and other precious items from their apartments. He was identified as a suspect after a Plano woman survived an attack at Preston Palace retirement community. On the same day, another body was found across the hall. So this man is basically accused of, prowling on these elderly people, killing them and stealing their personal belongings.
That's a mess.
He's a 47-year-old Kenyan
Man.
Okay. Unfortunate. What else do you have, City?
What I have, my friend, on the international scene is something very interesting. Boris Johnson is in the news. And why he's in the news is for 2 reasons. One, the British Parliament has a minister for Northern Ireland. And there's a certain gentleman who, it was argued, was critical to the stability and the changes that have come about in Northern Ireland. And now, one Mr. Johnson has sacked Julian Smith. He argues that he wants to reshuffle his cabinet, but he's come under great criticism saying that how is it that people who have actually helped him resolve issues that were a thorn in his flesh, why is he now sacking them? But I think what is really the news is that these are signs of things to come. He is a person who has very, very clear ideas of what it is that he wants to do, and he doesn't really care for any affiliations that don't suit his purposes. Which brings me to the second case. He mirrors what Trump has been doing, President Trump of the U.S. Now you have a situation where his AG, the equivalent of his AG, has commented and said that the tweets that the president keeps making don't help with the case. It's not helping with the cases they have.
Which case?
Whatever cases that they may have as a department, whatever issues they may have that are within the court, that the president's tweets do not help at all. In fact, if anything, they confound. Now, what is of interest, this gentleman is considered one of the biggest supporters of Trump, but he's now come out in the open. He's essentially criticizing the tweets. But the White House, we're told, have said, well, those tweets don't really move Donald Trump, which in effect tells me that those tweets really move Donald Trump, and the comments that have been made by a member of his cabinet is not going down well.
Down well at all.
Yes.
Of course, I expected this to come from the media that always fighting. They were going to pick on something that has been said by an AG, and it start showing. You see, even his own AG does not agree with what he does.
Actually, if it was just the only case, then one would say, well, you know something, sour grapes. But we've had people who've worked for Donald Trump writing books about the misdeeds or the things that have happened.
Yeah.
But then the list of people who've resigned, it's worth noting.
Yes.
And these are people whom he chose.
He chose them, and
These
felt
were his
that they could not
people.
continue.
Yes.
in that
It's not as though
particular-
he didn't inherit them.
When somebody resigns, somebody else takes up the job. I would have an issue if actually people are resigning and nobody wants to take up a job. When somebody else is taking up a job, you go. You don't kwenda. It's
There's
fine.
also the issue of what is it that these people who've resigned, what have they seen that they haven't spoken about, or what have they experienced? What is it? By the time you have people resigning, if you're talking about the Western style of doing business, they don't resign because they're happy.
Oh, of course not. And I think it's also a statement that they make. The resignation on its own is a statement.
It's a political statement.
That they are not able to continue with the way things are happening.
It's a political statement.
And you find people,
They
interestingly enough,
do not
you've had-
want to be associated with whatever else is actually going on.
Yes, for personal interest. So they want to see, okay, so for future, I want to make sure that I'm not the one who stays with this tag for long. Go in, do whatever you want to do, and then you leave. So in future, you'll be saying, but you see, I resigned. I didn't agree with what he did. So if you ever come and try and pin this on him, he says, I didn't.
I didn't do it.
I
didn't.
resigned.
I resigned.
I
I
left.
did not continue as things, were
Anything
going.
that I did while there, I was not agreeing with what the president was asking me to do. But you see, that's why I resigned. But you did it. Come on. And then somebody else comes and takes up the job. It's 6:30. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we look at the top story of the day. As we continue looking at the newspapers, what's been covered on the Daily Nation. Today is the Friday. Of course, the Nairobian comes out today. So we'll also be looking at the headline on the Nairobian and the Standard pullout for today. Remember, you can download the Standard e-paper app from Google Play Store and Apple App Store. And with just one subscription fee, you can choose weekly, monthly or annually. Then you get to access all of the Standard Group publications straight from your digital devices. Good morning. Let's take a look at traffic.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, today the traffic has started as far back as Sabaki on Mombasa Road today, inbound. It's moving very slowly, but it's moving. It's a Friday morning, and all roads, of course, leading to the CBD. But Mombasa Road already is snaking along. All right, taking a look at more at Thika Road today, we have traffic as far back as Safari Park Hotel already, but it is moving. We're not at a gridlock situation just yet. Langata Road moving very slowly right now, just around Bomas of Kenya. You do have that it slows down a bit before you take, the rise down to up to the rest of that stretch. And then coming down to the T-Mall roundabout, of course, it's moving very slowly, but then you can use the off towards Bagathi Way. Bagathi Way will not give you too many issues right now. The southern and eastern bypasses are what can be used in and out of Mombasa Road and in and out of Thika Road as well. Those are options that could use to get you into the city a lot faster. Coming off Jogo Road to the City Stadium roundabout, that of course getting into the city not so bad either. So Friday morning, people are behaving. The traffic is not so bad right now. Of course, it might change, and we'll be here to let you know what that will be in a very short while. You can reach us on Twitter on Spice FM KE, or you can give us a call as well and let us know what you see, and we'll share that info.
Spice FM. Malindi.
It's not right, but it's okay.
The 90s have never sounded so good.
My favorite songs of the 1990s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
In just a while, but it's interesting to note that for now, Uganda is going to call a regional meeting to discuss the locust invasion. We may have forgotten, but the locusts are still here with us. Uganda has said it plans to call a regional meeting to devise means to deal with the desert locust breeding area in Somalia, which has been blamed for the current invasions in the country and Kenya as well. Agriculture Minister Bright Ramirama made the revelation yesterday while being briefed in a parliament plenary sitting. These locusts, I quote, have been breeding in an area where there is war in Somalia. We are planning to call a meeting over the same so that we will deal with the situation in Somalia. According to the February 10 desert locust situation update by the Food and Agriculture Organization, the deadly insects have spread to Uganda and Tanzania, with breeding continuing in the Horn of Africa. And so now they're going to call from representatives and say collectively, what are we going to do about this? Because it's a big deal. Interestingly, FAO has a publication called Locust Watch, right? And they have been so serious about this that they have now created one that is totally, different from everything else. Of course, they've talked about the fact that there's an unprecedented threat to food security and livelihoods in the region. The report says that in Somalia, breeding was expected to be in progress northwest, central and southern areas. MPs demand that the government explain what it is doing in Karamoja and other parts of Acholi sub-region where the mature locusts have been reported. And they say that the Agriculture Ministry, the team from the Prime Minister's office and the soldiers deployed to fight the locusts have not yet sprayed the insects. So what has been happening in Kenya is also happening in Uganda. And calling on
we want to talk about it.
And now we want to call a regional meeting and talk about it.
The UN has actually declared that the East African region is actually facing famine as a result of these locusts.
Right.
But there's something that I must mention before we go to our next discussion, and that is last week in the Elgeyo Marakwet, 50 houses were torched. And the chiefs have been ordered by the Ministry of Interior to produce, they say...
The torture.
The torch, the people. I mention this because... Unfortunately for me, if my memory serves me right, we've had incidents in this country that were referred to as tribal clashes.
Yep.
They began like this.
Yep. So what happened in...
The paper doesn't give a lot of details about it. It just says that 50 houses were torched. They don't tell you where these people came from, who they were.
The background of it.
Yes, the background is not actually indicated. But it doesn't really matter where they come from. If people set out, these aren't like the 80 houses that are next to each other in Kawangware. No, these are people who live separately. And the houses were burnt deliberately. The reason why these houses, or the reasons given for the burning of these houses, is also not clear. But this is not a pleasant thing. It sends alarm bells ringing in my head, and it tells me that all is not well in certain parts of this country.
Right.
Yeah, that's shocking.
It is not pleasant.
It's not pleasant at all.
No, it isn't.
Not at all.
No.
Not in any way.
Yes.
Let's go to Laikipia County. So, Laikipia County government has laid off 176 employees in a staff rationalization program. In a statement released by the county secretary, Karanja Njora, the county says the rationalization program was aimed at reducing the ballooning wage bill and enhancing service delivery. Their wage bill is at 58.8% of the county's budget, higher than the legally recommended 33%. He says the decision was informed by a staff audit carried out by the County Public Service Board in 2019. According to Njora, some employees were earning salaries and were not commensurate with the services they were delivering. A number of employees were found to be wrongfully placed. The audit also revealed that some employees are not gainfully engaged, meaning that they earn a salary, but there is no way of justifying what exactly they do. So what do we do? We decide to bite the bullet and let them go. This, I think, is the first time we're seeing a county government actually doing the opposite of hiring people. It's just looking at the politics of things.
Right, I mean...
There will be a hue and cry.
There will be a hue and cry. But at this point, instead of fighting for extra money, they're basically saying, well, with what we have, we're not able to keep these folks on
let's
board.
Look at what are they doing? What are we paying them for?
What are we paying them for?
But remember, an audit was carried out, all right? And the audit is what brought out this. They said, look, you have This is the contingent of staff members that you have.
Yep.
And these are the functions that they're supposed to perform. And we are wondering, we're not even wondering, we're telling you don't need these numbers. What you need is this. And so you immediately do the maths and realize we also don't need then this.
And also identifying the skill gaps.
Yes.
So we have people, we have this kind of needs, and we don't have, enough people skilled enough to do this. Yet we have many people who are not skilled,
And they're hanging around here.
and they're hanging around this.
But this comes against a backdrop, if we're talking about counties, of yet something that is interesting that's happened in the counties. Kisumu County had the finance department, or the section of the finance department, went up in flames. And this isn't the first time that we've had issues like this
Yep.
happening in a county.
Nope.
It happened.
Whenever there are issues,
Yes.
to touch with something that needs to
Some
be
kind
looked
of
at in the
financial records. There's a fire.
But it's
Literally.
futile.
via visits.
It actually is an exercise in futility.
Why?
Nothing will be lost. You see, the way this, if I understand it well, the way IFMIS works, before you can even get contracted to work for the county, you need to be registered in IFMIS. All right? By the time you set out to be paid, or even if you're given a project, it's recorded somewhere. That's why it is known. And that's how you're paid, because it is known you've been given this work and the amount due is indicated. So when you hand in whatever documents that prove that indeed your invoice, so to say, again, it's entered in the IFMIS. So even if you burn the section that has files and the computers burn, the truth of the matter is that the information hasn't gone anywhere. It's still there. So what actually have you done by burning this thing? That's why I call it an exercise in futility.
Okay.
If they need to find the stuff, they're going to find it anyway. And I think it's clear that this was one of the reasons why they implemented this system in the first place, so there could be track and trace. And so you're going to burn down, the
Burn
tangible
everything.
receipts.
You can
might
burn
as
even
well,
the building, the entire building down.
unless you're going to collapse the system, then I don't know how you're going to keep
And
these
even if you
things
collapse the system, remember, this is ICT. That information is never lost.
There's a footprint, man.
Yes,
They'll be able
it's
to
never
find
lost.
On the issue of staff rationalization, Nairobi had also attempted the same. So remember, it conducted a biometric registration of its entire workforce, meant to flush out ghost workers. The issue of ghost workers in Nairobi County is as old as Adam and Eve. The registration was carried out by a private contractor. The total county workforce was set between 12,000 and 13,000. The biometric registration was necessitated by revelations that the City Hall has been spending 1.1 billion shillings every month in payment of salaries. In order to address this, City Hall set aside $1 billion to be used to lay off 70% of its aging workforce, as most City Hall workers are above the age of 55. Set aside the money. Has the exercise actually happened? No.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
The money has been set aside.
Yep.
So I don't know if I'm irked or I don't understand. Maybe I don't understand. I'm unable to comprehend. I don't know. You have a plan. You even have a budget. The budget has been approved, set aside. Certain things are supposed to happen. And then what happens? What's the clog between then just, picking up and moving? This affects so much. And whether we want to look at it locally, whether we want to look at it outside the borders of this country, this is the thing. There's a budget, there's a plan, it's on paper, let's move. Why can't we move? What happens at that point? And I think that is what needs to be looked at a lot of times. And there's an individual who's supposed to do something, a group of individuals who's supposed to do something, they don't do it. For what reason? Honestly, I really don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand. I'm at a loss this morning.
Yep, and the governor is still in issues. Remember, he tried to reshuffle his cabinet, fired the finance CEC, Pauline Kahiga, and tried to replace her with Alan Igambi. This has to be gazetted. Now, by gazetting, it means that it goes to the government printer, and the government printer produces it in the Kenya Gazette. The government printer now says, wait, I have received this thing from the county government of Nairobi, but I need the AG's direction. Because I am aware that there's a court case, I cannot go ahead and produce this specific gazette notice. So he's asking the AG, can you please tell me?
This is the first time you're actually hearing the voice of the government printers. For the longest time, you didn't even know who was the boss at government printers. You just knew of government printers, full stop. And this is the first time you're actually hearing someone making comments and saying, so you're beginning to understand the role of the government printers more and more and more. Again, the discussion. The individual maketh the position.
True.
Yes.
True.
Because it's this individual now who is giving this particular department a face.
Exactly.
And a voice.
where previously did not have one.
Yes, Eric, you intimated sometime in the course of the week that there was a development company that had a name similar to mine.
Yes.
I'm not even going to issue a disclaimer. I am not the only one who has that name.
No?
You're not the only Muga.
No?
No, there are some Italians who have that name. There are people from Spain who have that name. There are people from Eastern Europe who have that name.
Tanzania as well.
Tanzania. So, yes, take your pick.
Actually, in Nigeria, northern Nigeria, Muga.
See?
Oh,
Yeah.
there's Muga.
But Muga, yeah.
Oga Muga.
Sudan, yes, it even rhymes, doesn't it?
It's a universal name.
Yes, exactly.
All right, where are you heading with this?
I will have an opportunity for the disclaimer because what they're in the news for is nothing pleasant. It is something to do with Equity Bank putting them under receivership.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yes, 1.76 billion credit that was given to them. Nothing has been forthcoming, and Equity Bank has decided, let's just determine that let's get our money back by putting it under receivership. Essentially, they've been declared insolvent.
Okay.
Quite a number have.
Issues with that.
The problem with development companies is not the company. It often involves investors, as in people who want to buy the houses that they're developing.
Yes.
And in many such cases, there are people who have prepaid, to put it in layman terms. Now, these are the people whom I sympathize with, because it means that the likelihood of, even if you get back your money, the likelihood of your money being tied up in this litigation.
It's very high.
Yes. It's not even the length of the litigation, no. Even when the litigation is over, the likelihood of getting your money at the best of times remains very slim.
Slim.
Yes.
More in business, talking about savings and investments. The Capital Markets Authority has thrown Amana Capital a lifeline, restraining investors from withdrawing their funds from the asset management firm for the next 1 month. The move is expected to enable Amana mobilize funds to pay investors who are demanding their money back. It has plunged into difficulties after investors investing 275 million shillings in Nakumatt commercial paper, which is among the debts that the troubled retailer defaulted on. So CMS said yesterday it had granted Amana a 28-day period within which investors cannot withdraw funds invested there. Nakumatt went down. A company that had invested in some of their commercial paper is left exposed. The people who have who've put their money into this fund are therefore exposed, and they're demanding withdrawal of their cash. And that would mean catastrophic consequences for the fund and others.
Oddly enough, Eric, if there was a run on any bank in this country, the likelihood of it collapsing would be just as imminent, because it isn't as though the government has in its vaults all the monies that people have deposited. It never quite works that way.
Oh, no.
Yes. They usually have it in some, should we say...
Investments.
Yes, long-term, short-term, medium, or whatever it is. So if you're talking about cash withdrawals and demand for cash, even banks that we consider to be stable or would not be able to survive a run.
No, that's true. Of course, we've got to focus on coronavirus just a little bit this morning. Chinese nationals arriving in Kenya are required to self-isolate. Envoys say Kenyans and other foreigners living or studying in Wuhan are safe from the disease. So Chinese nationals required to self-isolate for 15 days. Chinese ambassador to Kenya, Wu Peng, said that to ensure this, the embassy would call them every morning to confirm that they are indeed at home. He added that the embassy's visa sections are still open, that they are offering services for those who have applied to travel to China since the coronavirus outbreak late last year. He was speaking at a forum with editors, and he confirmed that Kenyan students are safe in China, of course, giving that assurance, saying that they have the capacity and resources to manage the public health emergency effectively. I quote, "I fully understand the concerns and fears of families of Kenyans living or studying in China, especially in Wuhan city. I wish to express that foreign nationals, including Kenyans, are safe." His statement, however, is in contradiction of that of President Kenyatta, who had earlier hinted that the students would be evacuated. There was a caveat that the evacuation would only happen after China lifts the ongoing quarantine, which from all indications will be in place until the virus is contained. And that could take months.
If you want to throw a tailspin to this one, right now the discussion about or around the coronavirus is not so much in how you determine it, but it's how the Chinese government has come up with new ways of determining the existence of the virus. Now, in reality, what they've done is expand it, meaning instead of looking for the symptoms, they are looking at medical tests, people who go to be checked. If, for instance, you go for an X-ray and it shows that your lungs are in a certain condition, which conforms with what they were saying, meaning they're going to people who are not exhibiting what we would call the typical signs of the coronavirus, and they are determining that this gives you a truer picture. Now, what this, of course, means is that the number of people...
We have seen a spike.
A complete spike. We saw a spike yesterday and the day before, but today or yesterday it went down again. Now, we asked this question again in the studio as to what really is it about this virus that is causing so much stress and giving it so much attention? What is it that those who know about it that the rest of us do not know? Because this attention is really at a very, very high pace and is truly heightened. I think there's more to come.
Oh yeah, more to come. Of course, we're not even going to look at the numbers because, of course, the numbers have increased. We saw in a day that an additional almost 500 cases then found in one day. And this was just the day before yesterday. I don't want to look at the numbers right now and say where we are. Looking at it globally, of course.
But you're talking globally? Singapore Sevens, Hong Kong Sevens, stop. Asian Games, stop.
Formula One,
stop.
Tokyo Games for the Olympics, of
Stop.
course, are being looking at an eye of suspicion.
in
Is this
doubt.
going to happen? The Olympic Games also in doubt.
You tell me the last time you had a situation where something emanating from one part of the world is affecting the
globe.
entire world. Tell me, when was the last time?
it's a big one, this one. It's a big one. Let's take just a short break and then we come back and continue this conversation looking at the coronavirus as we conclude our review of the newspapers. It's 10 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nyeri. The 90s have never sounded so good.
Favorite songs of the 1990s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
Chinese
Nairobi.
ambassador is saying that Chinese arriving in Kenya are required to self-isolate.
Yes. So when they come in, and this is a crime that they've put through, and said you stay at home. Let's make sure that you're okay before we allow
And
you.
we'll be calling
to
your
go.
mobile phone to confirm that you're at home.
How are you going to do? Of course,
No,
the
you
question
can.
is,
You can.
yeah, you can actually trace where individuals are.
This is not what's happening. Come on, guys.
Oh, no. I was merely commenting on the simple,
possibility.
Just that little thing.
Because you call me, where are you? I'm at home. You're at home? Okay.
But remember,
There's no way we're going to be deploying all the technology just to track where you are.
Look,
Chinaman is serious now.
No,
A
people
point.
who've taken it seriously, my dear, are like Hong Kong, where schools not in session. Government employees work from home.
Yep.
Okay, now, this is serious. Now, essentially, the entire country has been quarantined.
Actually, it's the entire China has also been quarantined
Yes.
as well. Because in China, all schools are closed. The holiday season has been extended. People are being told, unless you need to come out, just stay where you are. You don't need to come and work. So we have people who are talking from various cities in China, people who are as far away as Shanghai and Beijing. And they're saying Beijing is actually a ghost town.
What I find...
And it is so many kilometers away from Wuhan province.
Yes, it's far. It's far. It raises the question again. You know, what I've found actually interesting is that the drama surrounding this, unfortunately, represents the reality of it. And it reminds you of one of those doomsday movies where there's this virus that is likely to influence the whole or attack the whole world. And you're thinking, these guys are really stretching it. Here we are.
It's happening right here, and
Imagine.
of course, this is a big deal, and for us to realize the numbers that we are looking at now and seeing what it is like around the world. It's not a joke. So in this case, maybe they have a way of making sure that those who come into the country are actually
No.
isolated.
They don't have a way of knowing that somebody who's in Kenya, who's a Chinese national and has a visa, a tourism visa, that visa has expired, right? We have no way of knowing that. How are we going to make sure that people are self-isolating?
No, he's talking about the individuals who are coming into the country.
Yeah, that they self-isolate. That
For 15
individual
days.
comes in and stays in a house without getting out of that house for 15 days.
Yeah,
and all we expect is that you're going to come on. I don't think
the embassy will call them every morning to confirm that they are indeed
I don't
at
believe
home.
that story at all. That that's not what they are doing. I don't believe that they are doing that. If indeed you wanted to ensure that people who are arriving from China, not just Chinese nationals, anybody arriving from China is isolated, that's what you do. Plane arrives, lands at JKIA. What's your original origin? China. Anywhere in China. So come, stay here for the next 2 days, 2 weeks. We're going to observe you, we're going to monitor you. And then you shall now be allowed to go home. If that's what was happening, yes. But saying that people have come and then you've told them, don't go and self-isolate. You've interacted with people, taxi drivers who are not. You've interacted with airport officials. You've interacted with people in your apartment block, and then you've entered the house, and then that's when you self-isolate. Come on, no.
I agree with Eric.
I don't buy
no.
that story. I think that was just a whole hobnob.
It wasn't
PR.
well thought out. When you say such things, surely you are going to be challenged. Self-isolate.
I don't see it.
Self-isolate.
Self-isolate in China. It's been ordered. It's happening because
It's been ordered.
The government has actually said stay indoors unless you have to come out. Don't come out.
Eric,
and then you can also see what's happening around you. So that will happen.
Those who predict such things, especially in the commercial world, had predicted that the businesses that have to do with ordering food and buying in through the internet would actually soar in profit. They did. But then came the little detail of, for it to actually get to you, somebody has to handle it.
Somebody has to bring it.
It has to be brought.
So the dip began. Now, anything that has to do, consider, how is it that the coronavirus is spread? Actually, the question you should ask is, how is it not spread?
Really?
Well, yes, it's airborne.
It's airborne, and previously at the onset of
And
this,
bodily
at the
contact as
onset,
well.
Bodily
at the
contact.
onset of this outbreak, it was just bodily contact.
That's it.
Initially,
So
that's what it was.
airborne bodily
It came out
contact.
to be that you could actually be in the same room with
Yes.
somebody who had been infected, and because then it was airborne, that was what then posed. Because look at the time between when it came the first time, they said it must have been bodily contact. Then after that, when they said this thing is airborne, is when we saw the huge spike, and we're looking at the doubling of numbers
Yes.
over a very short period of time, and that is when they now told us, you know what, this thing is now airborne.
And then the
Yeah.
incubation period, which they give you as 2 weeks, all right? That also isn't a certainty, because at what point could you have argued or said that someone was in contact with someone who had it, and at what time would they exhibit symptoms that indicate that they have it? Now, it's a debate that is ongoing, and it hasn't any clarity. WHO, in all its might and with all its experts, have also descended in China. And for all that you get from their visits, there is fact-finding. There are certain things there are many things which are simply not clear.
They still don't know this
Yes,
thing.
so apart from just repeating what has been done, there's nothing clear about, something. This is where we are with this is what we're doing. Then there is the fight to find a vaccine. Now, that is going on full throttle. But you see, with all these uncertainties, you could ask is, so what exactly are you finding a vaccine against? Because we're not very, very clear about this particular virus.
Here we go.
Maybe this
the
is
thing
why
and
then the alarm
unfortunately-
is so high.
Of course, the alarm is high because you have still more people dying over
And you
something
don't
that
know
they've
what is
really
killing
not
them.
It's not
figured
very
out
clear.
what is
It's
killing
not very,
them.
very clear.
And if we look at the numbers, let's just talk about, previously when we talked about numbers, we were at 11,700. The next day, the next 2 days, we got up to 17,000.
17,000 confirmed cases.
Today, we're at 65,000 cases, and we're at 1,500 deaths. To be more specific, 1,488 deaths. All right? We were talking about 180, and then we went to 362. We've not looked at the numbers for about 10 days, but that number has quadrupled.
It's getting into a multiplication
Easily.
phase. Yes.
And according to what they see, between yesterday and this morning, we saw an additional 121 deaths and 116 cases which were far from the epicenter of the infection. So now you're looking at outside Wuhan, there are more infection cases and more
cases
deaths.
are rising. But still, always remember the death rate of this scourge is only 2%. Confirmed cases to number of people who have died, 2%. Unlike the other caller told us the other day, compared to Ebola, which was at 60 or 70%.
Yes.
Still
Interesting to note also that
why this massive fuss?
Let's take a look at traffic. It's the top of the hour. It's coming up to 7 o'clock. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Spice FM. Nakuru. Traffic.
All right, looking at traffic on Mombasa Road, of course, we see that we had traffic as far back as Sabaki on Mombasa Road this morning. It's still the gridlock situation, bumper to bumper conditions all the way to Cabanas and then leading a lot further down. That means that it's going to be a while there on Mombasa Road. Looking at Thika Road as well, coming out from the Safari Park Hotel and then down, we have a bit of an issue there. Embakasi, the train is stuck at Aviation on its way to Embakasi, so that's not going to happen. Everybody's going to have to offload at some point and use public transport, but that means that in that area we're going to see some heightened traffic. So if you're wondering what's going on and you're on the train, or if you're trying to join the train at a particular place, it's not going to happen this morning because we are stuck. Right in the middle of the city, we do have some issues. It's a CBD. There seems to be crackdowns that are happening by the police of Matatsu, so that is affecting traffic within the city. We have an accident on the Thika Road as well, so that means that right around NYS, traffic is moving very, very slowly. It's raining in Westlands this morning, so this is affecting the roads. Coming down from Wayaki Way, we do have an issue. Kiambu Road already at 8 lanes now, which is normally 4 lanes, but we're at 8 right now. We'll see what it looks like in a short while. The ferries are ready to go in Mombasa and preparing transport for everybody this morning. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Of course, it's a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation as well. We are broadcasting from Nairobi on 94.4. We're in Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. Our live stream is up as well, www.spicefm.co.ke. Spice FM KE on Facebook, on YouTube, at Spice FM KE, on Twitter, at CT Muga, at Nduoko, at Eric Latif. So just before we move on to the next one, you were saying something about the coronavirus, something interesting.
It's interesting because we now have Vietnam as the only other country outside of China that has then now put a quarantine on an entire city or an entire town. And they've quarantined 10,000 in terms of population. One of the cities just outside Cambodia is that they've put a quarantine on this because they've seen that quite a number of cases have been reported of the coronavirus. So there's a lockdown on this community northwest of the capital of Hanoi, and it becomes the first location outside China to have ordered a quarantine for at least 20 days. And this is, of course, like I said, the only country outside China that has done this. And we don't know if this is going to happen in other countries after some time. So people, of course, there are fears and they're still quite shocking. The World Health Organization, of course, just after this, they've warned that this virus poses a grave threat to the world. And they're saying the virus could have more powerful consequences than any terrorist action.
Indeed, I think that I can see the importance of, them raising those alarm levels and that's much, and the alert levels as well, and also saying, look, anything that you can do, if you need to quarantine people, especially where the disease appears to be spreading, immediately come up with a quarantining people and blocking travel. It's a good thing because we still don't know what this is, and because we can't prevent it and we cannot cure it, then the best thing to do is ensure that we do not allow it to spread. Because if it spreads, that's it. We will never be able to manage it if it spreads. So it's good to contain it. It's a very, very, very big thing. So, Siti Muga, shall we talk about the International Criminal Court?
Yes, we not only should we must, but we must also say that Vietnam's neighbor Cambodia have allowed a ship that docked on its shores for 2 weeks. They have now allowed the passengers to disembark. Tests were done, and not a single person on board that ship was found to exhibit any signs of having the coronavirus.
Fuchs.
Now, ICC, for the longest time now, one thing has characterized the ICC: complaints by African nations that it is biased and that it focuses on African leaders, it focuses on Africans, period, and that it doesn't do much to look at. It doesn't do very much in looking at atrocities committed around the world. But if you look at the history of the ICC, beginning with when it was actually even first mooted or discussed, 1919, this was after the First World War, is when the discussion around it and the need for people to think of an international body that could actually judge or look at cases that went beyond the borders of each individual state. As we currently speak, the ICC has 123 member states, and 42 are non-party signatory states. Well, it may sound like the number is, a number, but if you consider that the UN has 193 members, then it tells you that the ICC has a significant number of individual states who supported the idea and the thinking behind it. But what propelled the ICC right to the fore was with the two tribunals, one for the Eastern European countries that were formerly Yugoslavia and for Rwanda. Now, this ended up in people not only just being indicted, as in accused, but people actually seeing jail term. But what happened thereafter was it was one African country after another being accused. What is also of significance is that there are very many countries that are not members of the ICC, and these are significant countries. Significant in the sense of the size of the economy, significant in the size of the population, and significant in the influence they have the rest of the world. China, US, not members. But the ICC doesn't limit its work to people who are members. No, its work goes beyond people who are actually members. The one time the ICC attempted to actually prosecute US soldiers for atrocities that they said were committed during the Afghan war, the US went ballistic. During the Obama administration, they tried to have some constructive dialogue. But remember, the one time when it actually moved forward, and there was even an attempt for the US to join the ICC, was during the Clinton administration. The US Congress did not approve that particular move. Now, with the Trump administration, why did I say ballistic? It's because not only has the US tried some of these cases that they consider, when I say try the cases, tried the judges, tried the procedure within their own courts, but they have threatened not only to issue visas bans. When I say visa bans, it's not against individuals that you normally hear, but on an entire country. But they've also issued many other threats, especially to countries that may have something to do with even pointing a finger at Israel being a member. But the one thing that has never come out to the fore is whether the ICC and what it does is actually effective. Bias has been there. The complaint about its overreaching and focusing on Africans has been there. This is what I'm saying. The ICC goes beyond being a deterrent. It is the one institution we have on this planet that reminds you that crime not only doesn't pay, but it's something that will catch up with you, whether you like it or not. And not necessarily in the long run. It's in the short run. If we go by the hoo-ha and the hullabaloo that have been raised, it means people take notice of it and they consider that its work is important. If it wasn't important, it would have been ignored.
ICC means that justice will eventually catch
Yes.
up with you.
Yes, and when I say ICC, I don't mean the International Cricket Commission. I am referring to the International Criminal Court of Justice.
In The Hague.
Which is in The Hague.
The
Yes.
rider there,
Yes.
depending on your skin color or where you come from.
That has been part of the debate. And I am saying that if you look at the fact that China hasn't joined. Now, China, if you look at the pronouncements that have been made by civil rights bodies, human rights bodies, they have many human rights issues that they feel have not been answered or have not been tackled properly. If you look at America, you're talking Guantanamo Bay, you're talking about the war in Iraq, you're talking about Afghanistan, you're talking about their participation in conflicts that have arisen in the world. You would say that they themselves have also been involved in matters that infringe seriously on human rights.
Of course, and then you want to ask yourself, why have they never been brought to book? Because that's the question. And interestingly enough, one of the things that the ICC continues to say over and over again is that they are free, they are fair, they follow the judicial process, and they bring to light cases where they feel that gross, crimes have happened. Of course, they stick to things like war crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, and the crime of aggression. So then, of course, I very many times I have to ask myself, these crimes don't only happen on the African continent or in Eastern Europe. They happen in very many other places. And I have to say that in many cases, the ICC is not perceived to be fair. Because if it was, it would then spread its tentacles across board.
You know, when Kenya launched that onslaught against the ICC, the publicity onslaught against the ICC, took it to the AU, and the AU even discussed this issue, and it was discussed and said, look, ICC cannot be seen to just be targeting Africa. Everybody else in the world was quiet because they knew what
They knew
it meant.
this was the truth.
And then we see the American government coming out and saying, in fact, if you ever even dare touch an American, we will bomb that Hague. Now, you see a country like Sudan, which is not a signatory to the Rome Statutes.
It isn't.
And then you come in and say, now, people in Sudan, including the president and some leaders of senior level leaders in government, have been indicted and they should appear before the ICC. So this is not to say that you only have to be a signatory to the Rome Statute for you to be indicted by the ICC.
No.
So the only thing that you need to do is you need to come from Africa or from Eastern Europe, because it hasn't indicted people from other parts of the world.
Let's talk
Oh, well,
about
and South
countries
America.
of the world where you've had atrocities being committed other than the two apparently choice places where ICC focuses. Where else have we seen the sort of atrocities that should have caught the attention of the ICC? I'm asking the question, where? China? Yes, obvious. Where else? Myanmar? Yes. Remember, one of the
So you're
things that
counting them
isn't...
as
I am
you go on,
counting them.
yes.
I am
And they
s-
do exist.
Yes, where I'm going with this is, before it gets to the point, remember the ICC is a court,
Yes.
like any other court. It has a president, it has the judiciary, it has prosecutors, it has a registry. It's a court. Now, they have procedures that they go by. By the time you hear of a case going to court, they have followed the normal procedures that other courts also follow. Meaning, it's mentioned, there's a case brought to it, it's investigated, and even this investigation takes certain processes. Like Myanmar is under investigation as we speak right now, because there are atrocities that have been committed, and these have reached even the UN. So where I would have questions, these investigations, what exactly are they? Now, to understand investigations, we saw in our own country when our president, the deputy, had issues with The Hague. We had a prosecutor, a gentleman, he was here so often and his name was mentioned so often, everybody knows him, Ocampo. I don't think he'd be very flattered to know that apart from children being named Ocampo, we also named the dogs after Ocampo. It's not
fierce dog.
it's a fierce dog. It's not meant to be derogatory. It's just that's how we name things. Okay, but we saw the investigation, and the investigations that they have often cannot move forward unless you have the compliance of the state that where this particular atrocity occurred.
And that's very interesting because you talk about compliance of the state. The US, for example, never ratified the Rome Treaty. Never. So, of course, they're not. And they went as far as to say that they would then institute proceedings against ICC judges and officials who dared to bring up any kind of summons against US nationals.
Yes.
They set up their own court. If we want to deal with the genocide or war crimes, we will prosecute ourselves. We are not going to bring ourselves to you as the ICC.
Yes.
And the ICC, of course, agreed to this. The same court who would then come out and then bring up cases against other nationals of member states who are not of states who are not actually members of the ICC. So here is it. Where does that come in? How then are you able to govern yourself on a global platform and then at the same time insist that other countries be part of this thing and then be ruled by that same
Actually,
court?
they give everybody the option of trying the cases in their own country.
Of course they do.
Case in point is Gambia. All right? They had a serious issue with the Gambia, and the Gambians determined that they were going to try the cases at home. We were given the choices, and there was a mantra: don't be vague, let's go to
Let's
the
go
Hague.
to the Hague.
And we did go to the Hague, and we stopped being vague. Okay? So the option is given. So it's not that, now it's countries decide that they want the matter to be taken to the Hague, then it goes to the Hague. But the option is given.
In
It's
terms
given,
of
but
flexing
also
its muscle.
the judges, somebody can actually go and file to the judges, and the judges can give the prosecutor the authority to open a case, an investigation
Yes.
into a certain ongoing situation.
Yes.
Like is happening in Myanmar.
Yes.
Right? People from Syria, some people from Syria have gone and taken this case to the ICC and said, look, investigate what has happened to Syria. Now, of course, those that are taking such cases are saying investigate the government of al-Assad. They're not saying investigate all the parties involved in
No.
the conflict in Syria.
No.
Same case with Yemen.
Now, Yemen...
What are the parties that are participating in the conflict in Yemen? Are we going to investigate all of them, or are we just going to investigate the
What is
rebels?
interesting, the two countries you've mentioned are not members of the ICC.
Yep.
Okay, but the cases are there. In fact, what is interesting about Yemen currently represents the largest humanitarian aid processes that this planet has actually seen. Yemen right now. That conflict is severe. And atrocities being committed are equally severe. Yes. But again, am I going to argue, therefore, that the processes are slow? The processes are not being undertaken? The processes are being taken. But remember, against what background? Against what backdrop? Before a case can actually be tried, and this really is the rule of thumb here, a certain threshold must be met. Yes.
You must have committed a crime to a certain degree.
Yes. Yes.
In order for them to now then say,
In order
okay,
to
there are
qualify,
grounds here
the
for us then to
jurisdiction
bring-
now comes in.
I still
It's
think
okay.
Actually, look, it falls with the definitions.
Oh, there you go.
For instance, genocide.
war crimes against humanity.
Different. Those are different things. Genocide is one thing. Crimes against humanity. And
different
if you've
thing.
looked at, they point to you 6 points.
Yeah.
For it to qualify, you must see
genocide.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I still think it's interesting, though, that to date, the prosecutor has opened investigations in 12 situations. Burundi, 2 in the Central African Republic, Cote d'Ivoire, Darfur, Sudan,
Yes.
the Democratic Republic of Congo,
Yes.
Georgia, Kenya, Libya, Mali, Uganda, Bangladesh, Myanmar. Isn't it interesting that we are focused on
Are you seeing
Africa
there?
and Eastern Europe? It doesn't move beyond that. Ever.
Let me
This
ask-
must bring out a question, and we must ask ourselves, really, okay then, are these the only places where these occur? And of course the answer is no. But these other countries have found a way to insulate themselves against any kind of prosecution coming from the court. And I think that alone must be questioned. If it's not questioned, then we have a problem.
Which also just brings down what CT is saying. Yes, ICC becomes a deterrent. ICC is some sort of guarantee, global guarantee that justice and will visit those that commit some of these atrocities. But it must go with a rider.
And
That
the
it
rider is...
depending on where you come
where
from
you come
and
from.
what nationality you are.
If not,
There are some
we'll come after you.
nationalities, there are some animals that are more equal than others in this particular
Because if you come
ecosystem.
bulldozing the way the US has, they said not only are we not going to be a member of this thing, but dare you indict
Dare you
any of our
touch
nationals,
anyone.
we will bring proceedings against you, the court, and your judges. In fact, we will ban you then from even mentioning our name as far as anything is concerned. Mind you, they didn't deny that such atrocities exist or have taken place. No, they've not denied that.
They've
but
not
they
even
have
said
said we are
open
not going to be part of
investigations.
the
We are
process.
clear. We are open. Just open your investigations. We are
Don't
very sure that
call
we have
any
never
of our
committed
folks there.
genocide. We are very sure that we've never done any crimes against humanity. We are sure. We know ourselves. We conduct ourselves in a very, very open manner. Do your investigations. You'll never find us. But now, don't even dare think.
Don't even think about it.
Don't think about it. 19 minutes past 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. Let's take a look at the weather. And then the conversation continues. Is ICC a global deterrent? Is ICC an assurance that justice will visit those who commit crimes against humanity and such other crimes? Good morning.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. The weather with Spice FM.
Looking at partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi today, we're seeing a high of 26 and a low of 12. In Nyeri today, it's at 16 degrees and partly cloudy conditions through the day. We're going to see the same in Nakuru, currently at 14 degrees and then rising slowly with partly cloudy conditions, expecting rain later on in the day. In Kisumu, currently at 20 degrees, rain showers expected from about noon and through the day, through the weekend actually. And we will see the same happening in Malindi at 27 degrees right now. It's going to be a warm day with highs of 33 and lows of 25. In Mombasa, currently at 23 degrees, it'll be a warm day as well with highs of 33 and lows of 20. And coming through to Eldoret, currently at 15 degrees, partly cloudy conditions through the day with a high of 20 and a low of 12. Finally, rounding things out in Nakuru, currently at 14 degrees, we're going to see a high of 26 and a low of 12.
The 90s have never sounded so good.
Favorite songs of the 1990s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
A long-running indictment against the leaders of Sudan, former leaders of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir and others, is finally coming to fruition, full circle. They are going to be presented to the ICC because the current leadership of Sudan has said, yes, we are going to hand them over. Now, Siti Muga, I'm sure you're using that to show, look, you do it, you think you can run away from justice, justice will eventually catch up with you. And this is because we have a global court that was mooted a long time ago, that came to life, that has been supported by many countries around the world, that is sitting at the Hague, and this is the ICC.
Actually, it's just part of the story. The story begins in 1993, when the U.S. essentially blacklisted certain countries which they deemed to be supporters of terrorism. Sudan was one such place that was deemed not just foment, but to train terrorists. And they blamed the attack on the embassies in Kenya and Tanzania on this very same thing. And for the longest time, the U.S. courts, remember, they took this matter to their own courts, demanded a reparation of $300 million from Sudan. And of course, Bashir told them to go suck a lemon or climb a tree or do something else, but he certainly wasn't going to pay. Now, with the time, the pressure also mounted when the issue of Darfur came to be again during the time of Bashir. But over time, Sudan has been seeking now to have greater or better relationships with the U.S., specifically the U.S. They recently agreed on an amount that would be paid for reparations. The amount has not been made public, but it has been agreed upon. So I think that the issue of taking Omar al-Bashir to the ICC is part of that particular package, where they're saying we are ready to be brought back into the fold to be among the countries that are considered favorably by the U.S. And so, as a show of good faith, this gentleman who was responsible, this person who is not so gentlemanly, who was responsible for all these atrocities, we are now willing to take him to the court that has wanted him to come forth and answer for these crimes for the longest time possible.
I think it's more than anything, it's getting al-Bashir out of the way. And not necessarily that. I don't think the interest is in his prosecution.
Not at all.
No, I don't think they really care what happens. It is removing him from the power seat in Sudan. Because if they're saying, because at the end of the day, that's clearly what the US wants. They don't want anybody who's going to meddle in the affairs of Sudan, right? And for the longest time, he has been the one that has been meddling. So whether he goes to court, whether he goes to hide in a hole somewhere in the North Pole, it doesn't matter, so long as he's not there. I don't think the US could give a hoot whether he's convicted at the ICC.
However,
or not.
The other argument also holds for the people of Darfur, people who were victims of these atrocities.
Terrible atrocities.
Terrible atrocities. When they see this person who's responsible actually sitting before a court of justice, and if the process goes through,
They feel something has
they
been
will
done.
feel that justice has actually been delivered to them.
Right, but
So,
in this case,
one way
the
or
only
the other.
way, but in this case, the only way for that to happen was some high-level negotiation. Obviously, we don't know where or the details of how it took place, but the only way that this was going to have been made possible was some high-level negotiation, of course, between the US and these fellows who handed this guy over. It didn't just happen that he walked into somebody's office and said, right, he's here, let's go. No. It was a negotiation that, of course, took place very quickly, but then was with the consensus of many people at the same time. Should he go? In order for us to get back to the social standing, or at least attain some level of social standing, yes, he should go.
But
a consequence of that is that people will see justice for the atrocities that were meted upon them during the war. That's a consequence of this arrangement. Had it not happened, we would not be seeing that.
But his argument
it's
is
an advantage.
the fact that we have this
it
court.
wouldn't have happened otherwise.
The fact that we have this court is some sort of assurance that one day, it doesn't matter, 20 years, 40 years, 15 years, 5 years, one day, justice will visit you. Justice will actually be delivered for the victims of the atrocities that you commit.
It's interesting, though, but during the time of
One
conflict...
day you will pay.
During the time of conflict and the perpetrators of such, it is not a deterrent.
It is not.
No, during the conflict...
Yes and no.
During the conflict, when people are committing these heinous acts, when people are giving these directives for these things to be done that we look at and we talk about the horrors of genocide, for example, they're not thinking about the ICC as, okay, let me not do this so that I will not then be indicted in the future. No. This happens after.
They pass that threshold. When people are at that, it's just like
it's-
bank robbers. When bank robbers are plotting, they know.
They know the police exist.
The police
They
exist.
know they can die.
They know the penal code says if
They
you're
know.
caught, this is robbery, violence, it's life in prison. It's
They
death.
know.
They know. But it's at that point,
It's of no consequence.
You've passed that level. So when the guys are committing these atrocities, it's not that ICC is a deterrent anymore. They have already passed that. But the fact that we have the ICC, it's an assurance.
But consider also that the processes that brought about ICC as we currently know it took a total of something like 93 years for it to be ICC.
It took a long time
But
for them to come to Rome and then decide.
The African nations had an opportunity to collectively walk out. They didn't. All right?
Yes.
And when we talk about the Gambia, we must also talk about South Africa. And in that vein, we must also talk about Botswana. They are the only countries that said, no, we are not walking
We're
out
not
of
going to be part of this.
No, we're not walking out of this ICC thing. We think it's a good thing.
We're staying.
South Africa, the thing had to go to court for the Supreme Court to determine that the walking out was unconstitutional. All right? So it's a mishmash. I could argue that the African countries complain about being picked on, but they only pay lip service because complaining is easier. When they were given an opportunity to actually take action and say, we're not going to be part of this nonsense. These guys just seem to be picking on us. No. And if you look at the countries that are currently resident on this particular planet, which continent exhibits the largest instability when it comes to government? Simple question. Which continent? Is it Asia? Is it Africa? Is it the Americas? Which one? It's this one. It's the African continent.
That has what?
The previous statement was that
Exhibits the most instability when it comes to
their
governments.
government. Asked which one? Which continent do you see most instability in governments? It's this one. And the instability arises from internal conflict. And with these internal conflicts comes what we call atrocities. It's a chain reaction, but this is what comes about. Now, you could argue that some of the catalysts are leaders who just refuse to leave, okay? But with the refusal comes, again, the same thing. So this continent, unfortunately, has borne the brunt of these uncertainties and insecurities. And if they're being picked on, I would agree. This one I wouldn't even argue. They're easy pickings.
But how many countries in Africa are actually exhibiting that instability in government? Look at the countries in East Africa. How many do we have that have instabilities in government?
Burundi, Somali,
Somalia,
Sudan.
yes. Sudan, which Sudan?
South.
South Sudan.
And right now, Sudan itself has issues. Instability doesn't mean that people are chopping each other's heads every day. It
I
means
want it to go to that level.
no, it doesn't have
Because
to.
if it doesn't go to that level, then the whole
And
world.
there's the whole world. Then
Yes.
at that point, you'd be seeing that then really the necessity of the ICC then it actually dwindles.
No.
Yes,
The
because if
fundamental-
this is the
the
thing that they're looking at.
fundamental
Somalia
They're
is
not-
a- is
the
an
ICC
extreme,
is
and you
not
can see it
right.
clearly.
We
There's
can
a
see that
failed
it
state.
goes to that point.
But Somalia, if you look at it,
But
there's a
if you
government.
look at if you look at Burundi and the way in which that government has suppressed people who opposed it, and it continuously does so, then you can't actually refer to that country as being stable, can you? Remember, I have not mentioned DRC because DRC is fairly stable. They have their issues, but they're fairly stable. It's unlikely that there's going to be a coup in DRC, highly unlikely. But in Sudan, up until very recently, the killing spree that characterized the so-called independence and secession was in force right after they'd had their independence. That is instability.
Yes.
Right now, if you look at Sudan itself, the ruling military junta that is there don't seem to have a very firm grip on the country. Again, remember, I haven't mentioned Egypt, who have issues, but because I'm saying they're stable.
Those are political instabilities.
Eric,
And if you go across the globe, you will find instances and pockets
why
of
don't we
such.
go to Asia and mention a few?
You've just come up with some of them.
Oh, no,
You've told
no,
us about
forget that.
Cambodia
No,
and
no,
Myanmar and
Myanmar.
all those others.
Those are mine. I'm the one who's mentioned. I need to mention yours.
They're the
Hiya.
same. Those same countries.
I'm trying to say
The region
that
has the same
they
countries.
aren't actually there. There was a time, one of the things that the ICC also looks at in terms of this is drugs, the proliferation of drugs and the damage it does. And they once indicted the Philippines. And the gentleman who was then in charge of that particular country, his reaction wasn't really very different from that of the US. He also threatened to leave.
And
Duarte, that was his name.
The Duterte.
Yes, whatever the Tete name. Duarte.
Isn't he
The
still
Philippines.
He's still the leader, isn't he?
Yes, Rodrigo. Yes. The issue then was escalating drug war. People were being killed. Now, remember I mentioned earlier on that one of the things you want to look at is the tenets that the ICC uses for considering the case worth their while and whether it meets the threshold that we're talking about of whether it is crime against humanity, whether it's genocide.
If another country on this continent that we're talking about, 53 strong on the continent of Africa, came and said, number one, we are not going to be part of this ICC. And on top of that, if we tell you that we have not done anything wrong and you want to do your investigations, fine. However, dare you try and arrest or indict any one of our officials in government, for example, we will then bring proceedings against you. Do you think such a thing would have been accepted? I mean, would it be?
I
Nigeria
think
goes and says, in fact, we're not doing. Would they have accepted? Would the court have accepted that?
until they try it, we can't really know, can we? You see, it's
Sudan has done exactly. Sudan did exactly that. They went ahead and indicted the president.
Still.
28 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is a situation room. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
All right, yes, still chock-a-blocked on Mombasa Road this morning, moving very, very slowly. We're also going to look at moving from Jogo Road via Lusaka Road to Upper Hill as actually quite very, very slow. Bunyala Road is not moving right now. If you want to look further towards Westlands, Wayaki Way, of course, there's some parts of the road that are still being constructed. This is going to compound traffic for a while. It's not as easy as we see it. Ngong Road, of course, giving us the same problems that we saw yesterday, moving quite slowly today, all the way from the junction down towards the city mortuary roundabout. Umoja, we're seeing some problems today, moving all the way roundabout to Outer Ring. It is Friday. For some reason, everybody is rushing to get out of the house. I wonder what that might be. Take it easy and exercise some patience. Spice FMKE is how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see that might make it easier for us to move, and we'll spread the word.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 26 to 8. You can post your comment on the ongoing conversation regarding the ICC. Is the ICC a deterrent? Is the ICC an insurance for the global community that, people who commit serious crimes against humanity will eventually face justice? Do you agree with what CT Muga is saying today? You can also call in 0719 012 600. So, yeah, City, I am agreeing with you that, yes, having that court up there is a good thing, but also having that court up there, but it's not... dealing with the entire world is also something that needs to be addressed. The Rome Statute has been ratified by many countries,
Yes.
more than 60.
Yes.
But not all,
Not all of them,
not all
yes.
countries of the world. But also the ICC, we have seen, has reached out to countries where the Rome Statute has not been ratified.
Yes, they have.
And we've also seen where the ICC has not commenced investigations on countries where the Rome Statute has not been
Yes.
ratified.
But there's still a case that
And
they would
there are cases-
ordinarily move against such other countries in the world.
When you compare what has happened to Sudan and what has happened in other countries, you would see this is something that's glaring that the ICC should be able to
They should,
investigate.
but
And
remember,
then they don't.
There's something also, there's what we think they should, and there's what they can. You see, they cannot prosecute even individuals or states if whatever it is that you want prosecuted does not fall into the category of what they would prosecute. They have a list of things that they do. I mean, let me give an example of, say, genocide. They say they are what they define, all right? Under Article 6, this is what it means. Killing members of a group, causing serious bodily and mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life, except imposing measures, and they go on. Under crime against humanity, they have lists. Under war crimes, they have a different list. Why am I mentioning this? I'm mentioning this against a backdrop of countries that probably have a stronger rule of law, meaning if there is a law in that country, the likelihood of it applying to all the citizens is greater than some others. Now, our countries on this continent do not have that reputation.
Wait, where does that come in? Look.
Oh, no.
When you
You've
take
asked a
Boston-
question.
when
Can I
you
answer your question?
Are you still answering it?
No, but you've asked a question.
I
and
want to
I'll-
interject and ask you that question as you answer. Connect.
You want to ask a second question because
when-
you've already asked a question.
And I'm actually asking a
Ask.
question based on what you are saying. You
Yes.
take Bosco Ntaganda from Rwanda and say, what he's been doing, arming militia in the DRC and all, is something that is so serious it falls into that category. And then you also look at other countries that have sponsored militia, other countries that have participated in war crimes and killing of people. And you're saying, well, because Rwanda and DRC don't have strong internal laws that deal with this, we can take Bosco. But if you look at other countries, because
Eric,
they have
you've isolated
laws,
one example out of two that had been given, and the two were not complete. I was going to give a third, but let's stick with the two, and let's stick with what you've said.
Shall I take this call first and then we
Yes.
can continue? Sami in Magarini, good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sammy.
Yes, I'd like to contribute to the show.
Yep.
Yeah, what I want to say is that actually the idea of having ICC is good. It's a good idea. It's only that we as African countries, we cannot maintain our own court. Imagine we have Arusha, where some of the Rwandese who committed some such offenses in Rwanda were convicted. Like Sabuka, somebody, I can't still remember the name, but I know he was convicted. But because we know that we cannot maintain, we cannot pay, we rely on those people, the Western countries, because they have money and they can maintain the court. Maintaining that court of ICC is not a joke. It needs a lot of money. So if we had money, I think we could also have our own as an African international court where we can take our cases, where we commit or whoever commits a humanitarian crime, we can be taken there and be convicted. But this is the fact that we cannot maintain, we are selfish, we cannot contribute. Imagine even in the AU, we have some obligations that each country should contribute such amount. But up to now, there are some countries who cannot, who have not remitted any money to that. So I think with the ICC, the problem with the ICC is that they are sometimes biased. we know those judges are human beings, and sometimes they are bound even to be convinced. Like Okambo, he promised that he would actually show the world Kenya as an example. But at the end of that, we saw that it failed because they failed to collect the evidence.
Kenya showed him an example.
Yes, they took the court they took the case to the court before the court, but they forgot that they had the evidence left. They had left the evidence behind, so they came back trying to collect the evidence. But you know, with human beings, they know how to maneuver. All the evidence was destroyed. Some of the people were killed. So I think they should style up. They should make a framework. They should actually make sure that they investigate before they take the court before the court.
Yep.
They should actually make that investigation so that at the end of the day we see the fruit of the conviction.
Thank you very much, Sami. Daniel in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning, City and the team.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Yes, this topic on ICC, though it can get volatile, but let's just tackle it. Because with ICC, what I know from the onset was that it was a supreme arm designed by European countries to overstretch their might and colony to other states that are less economically endowed. And
Right.
and what you see with this, I've always been in question with this case of Myanmar. They're investigating it, yet the leader there is a Nobel Prize winner,
Yep.
ironically, and then she denied that there was no atrocities that happened, despite the pictures that went on viral, and people saw what happened. And when we come to United States, they are always the people who always issue travel ban to those leaders, maybe or countries that defy ICC conditions. So what I think is that ICC is just a toothless judicial body, and it cannot be valid enough to maybe meet the threshold of being an international judicial overseer. And I wanted to ask the panel that when does the crime against humanity graduate to genocide? And I know with the city and the team, you know, the standard that they are always that is always being used.
Yeah.
And if this Myanmar case can be categorized as genocide, otherwise, what I've come to realize is that this court is very selective in its prosecutions, because they are always targeting African leaders.
Other African leaders. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Yeah.
Have a good day in Kisumu. 0719-012-600. So, City, picking on that and then continuing with your examples.
No, I wanted you to ask the question you wanted to ask. You
I
had
asked my
one.
question.
No, you didn't actually. You didn't. You brought in the call. You didn't answer the question.
You were going to point number 2. All right. So my question was,
Yes.
I had asked that question. If you look at the kind of atrocities that have led people from the DRC to be taken to the ICC, and then you look at what has happened globally and around the world, like we are saying, this is the case of Myanmar, these are cases of Yemen and Syria. These are atrocities that have been committed by people from those countries and by people who are visiting those countries in the name of pacifying the countries. Afghanistan and Iraq as well. You will find cases of gross human rights violations.
True.
Are you telling me that they don't meet the threshold, or is it because those countries have internal, strong legal structures, as you were saying?
I was saying this. The strong legal structures play a part of it. But also, if you remember, there is the case of what you can easily prove and what is easily prosecuted. The cases that we've had, if you ask me, are low-hanging fruit.
That's the thing. It is low-hanging fruit. At the same time, you have, if you want to look at the atrocities that were committed in Iraq, and if you want to look at what was happening in Afghanistan, a lot of times instituted by Look, it's no secret that a company like Halliburton, which was owned by Dick Cheney, for example, and some of the atrocities that then were meted upon the people of Afghanistan and Iraq as a result of the fact that they were able to trade in arms and militia and actually train people to go into warfare and actually be able to torture in a certain kind of way. Had it been another country where because look, in Rwanda, we have people who were indicted, convicted, and then, sent to jail because of pronouncements they made. They were not in active warfare. They didn't actually raise their finger to do something, but by virtue of the fact that they spoke, that was enough to bring them to trial. If you want to apply the same thing, even with the United States that we're talking about, but you see, the thing is, they had already protected themselves, and by the very bullish nature of how they go about things, were able to protect themselves even more and not having to go and stand and not being able to stand any kind of trial because of that. Here, unfortunately, because of the fact that we are naked before the judicial system, it was very easy for them to pick at African countries.
We've had an opportunity to act as an AU.
Notwithstanding the fact that these crimes were actually committed. What gives everybody a woosa moment is that when these convictions actually take place, people find that there's some kind of justice that has been served for the lives that have been lost. But the same thing has happened in other countries. But by virtue of the fact that they've been able to protect themselves, there's no any kind of punishment that's meted against them.
Complaining and talking about how badly treated we are, why don't we arm ourselves? If people are arming themselves and ensuring that they can buffet themselves against what you may think doesn't work in their national interest. We had the opportunity when Museveni actually was the chair of the AU, did we not? But then with these matters, do we really understand and know what background discussions and negotiations actually take place before something is pronounced? Do we even know why it is that collective position could not be taken unless somebody just reports and tells us this is what they think happened? Do we really know? The answer is we do not. Now, Africa is a continent. If the countries are weak, and we are weak because we're dependent on the West, if we cannot collectively take a stand on an issue such as this one by showing that we ourselves can actually, when Sami called in, I liked what Sami said. We have an East African court. We could have a Pan-African court. If we had those strong institutions within our own body, we just tell ICC,
hold on,
chill,
we're going to sort this out on our own.
We've seen, we know. And these are Africans, we know them even better than we do. We're going to sort this thing out. Do we have such a mechanism?
We do.
Okay, where?
We do. We can establish that very easily. We already have an African
Eric,
court.
what
you're talking about is like raising the threshold and saying the African court deal with this,
giving
and
it
then have
teeth.
the capacity, give it a lot of
it
teeth.
being there,
yes,
and
so,
it being effective,
and even
signing
an Addis Ababa statute. So forget about the Rome one. Let's have an Addis Ababa statute to deal with those exactly same cases: genocide, crimes against humanity. What are the other two?
Crimes of aggression.
Crimes of aggression.
Right.
And yes,
There's one more.
We can do the same and set it up in Africa. But like you said, we are weak. We don't have the capacity. We thoroughly.
No, we have chosen not. No.
We thoroughly depend.
No. We have chosen not
capacity.
to have the capacity.
We thoroughly
because we depend on the West.
On the West.
We just said
Allow
it now.
me to say it
CT.
again.
Because
yes,
you just said it now. We depend on the West, and so because of that, then by the time we're depending on them for any kind of development, we're depending on them for development. By the time you're thinking about food and how to get your country sorted out, then you come and start thinking about justice and the courts.
We
have chosen to depend on them.
Yes,
all right.
We have.
All right, let's give it to that. So we have chosen to depend on the West. The issue is not that. It's not our internal capacities. The issue is the imbalance in this.
And this imbalance is created by external forces
yes.
and not us. No.
We are together in this global community. We
the
are
same
members
argument
of the global community.
Right, so we say because we've chosen and because we are weak, the same argument can be used and said that, yes, again, the ICC then the ICC then is choosing to prosecute these cases on the weak countries. You can say that and say that is that, and that should not be the case. If anything, there should be an increase in capacity. They're using their muscle to ensure that they are not prosecuted.
And we must call them out. We can't always be looking and blaming ourselves that us guys, or looking inwards and saying because it's
maybe we should work on ourselves and say
let's tell them.
If it is fair, and it's interesting, this is one thing that they continue to harp on. We are a fair court, and in terms of the judicial process, we are going to make sure that it flows seamlessly. Now, it's clear that you pick on those whose internal
But
structures
why
are not
do
up
you
to
two
scratch.
choose to separate these issues? It's one and the same thing.
How?
Even as we point out, we must strengthen ourselves. You can't talk about the ICC being a biased institution, and yet we do nothing for ourselves. Really? We sit there and have this thing meted on us, and we sit there and then whine and complain? Of course not. These things that are happening, we can see, and they are wrong. But why are they picking on us? We are low-hanging fruit. That's the reason why. So why do we remain low-hanging fruit? We have a choice. Internally, we can do things for ourselves. Look, when I say we choose, it's because if I hadn't witnessed it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have said so. I saw with my own eyes when I was alive and well and I wasn't dreaming, a government of this country being able to satisfy and meet the needs of its budget from its own resources. I saw it. We didn't move to another country. We didn't ask other countries to join us so that we could become a bigger country. It was the same country. I saw it. It means it's something that can be done. I have seen with my own eyes a governor losing his position. I have seen with my own eyes a CS and his principal secretary being removed. I have seen the wheels of justice moving. I have seen it. It means it can be done. Why doesn't it become the norm? That is us. It isn't the ICC. It isn't the UN. It is us.
Yeah, but you're also bringing another different debate altogether, CT. We are not complaining about the cases that have been taken to the ICC. They deserve to be.
They should be taken there.
to
I
the
mean,
ICC.
absolutely.
That's
Those
not the
should
problem.
be taken into
The
consideration.
problem is those are the only cases that are going to the ICC, and we are saying that we should also see cases from the West going to the ICC, cases from North America going to the ICC.
Even with
that is what we ought to see.
Right, taking Sudan as another example, even with the chest thumping that we saw out of Sudan, did they listen to him? Is it not the same Bashir that's being served up on a platter now? They chest thumped and said, we are not going, we're not doing. What do
There
we
he
see?
is now.
But Bashir was right. He wasn't going. He's being taken.
10 minutes to 8 o'clock. Let's take a short break. And then the conversation continues. You can still call in 0719 012 600.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So we're taking your phone calls 0719 012 600. You can also post your comment on Facebook. We're live streaming there at Spice FM KE. You can tag us on Twitter at Spice FM KE. And also our hashtag is The Situation Room. This and every morning, the conversation continues on all our digital platforms, including www.spicefm.co.ke. So this morning, CT Muga is raising the issue of the International Criminal Court. Of course, he's saying that just looking at the example of Omar al-Bashir of Sudan, one example, months after he's been deposed and removed from office, he is being handed over to the ICC after having refused and, gone out with fuss and kicking and saying, no way, we're not even going to sign and ratify the Rome Statute in this country. But now he's going there. And CT is saying just the fact of having that ICC there, it means that people will eventually face justice. At whatever time. It doesn't matter. 1 week, 1 year, 1 decade, 2 decades. Well, a century, maybe not.
Pushing it, but it won't. We're talking of Myanmar. We have a situation where
Let me take this call.
Let the call come in.
David Nyamoya in Kisii, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, my brother?
Fine, thank you.
Morning.
I've been enjoying this show since 5 o'clock in the morning. You guys have been touching my soul. I'm just trying to imagine
Yes.
of a country bringing a game where they don't participate, but they judge the game.
There you go.
The referee doesn't have the referee was not a former player.
The referee
But he was-
is a cricket fan, but he's here on a football game.
But he's playing football.
Yes. And now that is the ICC.
Yes.
Yes, you bring things to test. With other people. You know, I still see us back in the colonial moment.
Mm-hmm.
What you're trying to argue is true. We have serious cases like in America every day. Do you know how many black people die every day and it's not reported? They hide. Such cases should be brought to the ICC.
Yep.
Yeah, such cases should be brought to the ICC. When America hits Iraq, why is it not a crime? But when Iraq hits America, American protected
It's a
country,
serious crime.
Yeah, it's a serious crime.
Yep.
You see?
So there's
Now-
inequality in this.
Yeah, there's inequality in this, and it's high time now we start behaving like Al-Bashir and the rest, because we are gonna we are gonna remain in these colonies forever and forever and forever.
Thank you very much, David. Have a good day in
Thank you very
KC.
much.
Lydia, good morning.
Good morning, Spice FM. Thank you for your good program every day, at least most of the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia.
Yeah, because I know you don't act on Saturdays and Sundays.
Oh, that's the only reason. Thank you, Lydia.
That's why. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I wanted to say thanks to ICC, International Criminal Court, because now what happened to Rwanda? People just got massacred, killed like rats. Everywhere in Africa, thousands of people are running through the desert trying to reach Italy. Why? They're just hurting each other. Now we in Kenya, second term of Uhuru's election, he won, but Raila refused. And the whole city was filled with robbers, looters, violent people. And only when he shook hands with Uhuru, yes, all those robbers, looters, violent people went away to hide. Just that handshake did it, because International Criminal Court was above their head. So I thank International Criminal Court for being there.
Thank you.
I don't want to worry about America and Russia and all. We can move there slowly if we smarten ourselves.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Spice
Lydia.
FM.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Farhal Salim in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're fine,
Fine,
thank
thank
you.
Fine, thank you.
I just wanted to contribute for some few remarks about the
Yeah, ICC.
ICC.
Yes, go ahead.
The thing is, the ICC is very, very...
Hello?
Okay.
Hello, Farhal?
Hello?
Yes, you're there. Go on.
It helps us
Yes.
in Africa, understand?
Yes.
Yes.
Because everyone is talking about North America, they're talking about the war in Syria. Because in Africa, there's too much corruption. We cannot help ourselves, my friends. We cannot help ourselves.
There are too many other things that we need to be worrying about.
Sasa hiyo aseme ati wewe tufungue sijui ICC yetu hapo, uongo, hakuna kitu kitafanyika. Wacha watusaidie tu hawa jamaa.
Wakae kule.
Ni sawa kabisa.
Sawa, Farhal.
Wacha watusaidie tu.
Thank you. Thank you, Farhal. How was it in Mombasa this morning? What's the weather like? What's the traffic like? He's gone. All right.
Okay.
So we'll of course get updates from that. Other callers will call in. So, City, are we convincing you well enough?
No, it is
Actually, no. You have convinced me that ICC is. It's good to have ICC where it is. I agree with you.
If you look at Myanmar,
I'm just adding that right up.
and
Mine is adding the right up.
and I thank you for opening your eyes wide, and while doing so, also being able to see through those eyes. It is a good thing. Now, you see, with Myanmar, what has happened? The threshold for prosecution and investigation has been reached. The Myanmar government told them to get lost. Completely. They are not buying into it. They are not interested. And according to their government spokesman, they are arguing that it doesn't meet the threshold of international law. Now, if they refuse to cooperate,
After all, these are just Rohingyas.
Precisely. Now, it meets another threshold for investigation. So, how far do you think the ICC is going to go?
It should continue with that investigation.
How is it going to continue?
You see, it doesn't matter. When they were investigating the case in Sudan, it's not that the Sudanese government welcomed them and said, yes, we agree that it meets the threshold. You can still continue. You don't have to be welcomed. It can be, the country welcoming you, or you can basically say the judges have asked the prosecutor to open a case.
You know, the point I was making
Open
earlier on, even
investigation.
as we move on to the hour, is that there's a robustness of legal processes in the West that unfortunately we do not have. Presidents can be taken to task. They may not get jailed, but they'll be taken to task. There'll be a court hearing. You have some improper behavior with a young lady, it'll come to light. You will be taken to task.
Yep.
We cannot take our leaders at the helm to such a task. That is really the truth.
So we need a third person.
You need a referee, hopefully one who has played football.
In this case,
A
seeing as that
football
would be the sport
referee
of
in
choice.
a football match.
But
This
yes,
is what you
not
need.
a football referee
not a
in a
cricket
netball
umpire.
match.
Right. Not a cricket umpire. Somebody who understands really what's going on and understands that we're kicking the ball, not tossing it with our hands.
Bas. The conversation continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook and Twitter, and also you can comment on YouTube. We're live streaming on those three platforms, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads as it's coming up to 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM.
Yes,
Kisumu.
well, Langata Road never fails to disappoint. Unfortunately, we have traffic as far back as the Bombers of Kenya, and it's taking us all the way to the T-Mall roundabout. However, you can use Bagadi Way to get into the city centre a lot faster, but you're going to have to sit through what needs a lot of patience on Mombasa Road today. All right, looking at, or rather, on Langata Road, and of course, then Mombasa Road, of course, is serving up a bumper-to-bumper situation right around Cabanas all the way down to General Motors. Of course, we have people using the road behind the inland container depot, so that is an option to then get onto the Greater Mombasa Road, but that is chock-a-blocked as well. All right, getting into the city centre via Jogo Road, not so bad right now. What we had seen before has dissipated at least just a little bit. Getting into the city is a little bit easier. Coming off Waiyaki Way, of course, with the construction that we see, a little bit more difficult. It's raining in some parts of the city, so that means the roads are slippery and everybody's moving a little bit slower. So exercise some patience, folks. Spice FM KE, reach us on Twitter, give us a call, let us know what you see. Friday morning, let's keep it moving.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Happy Valentine's Day to you, and how you doing? This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM, broadcasting from Nairobi 94.4, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. Whatever you're waiting for on this particular Valentine's Day, whether you're attending the men's conference or you are waiting for your partner to take you somewhere, whatever. Or you are actually buying a gift for your partner and your loved one. Enjoy the day. It's a lovely day. It's a day of love.
Can we come to the men's conference?
Yes, you can.
Me, as me.
Yes.
You as you.
Yeah.
No, the question doesn't, can you attend
Can I attend the conference?
on TV?
Can you come? Yes, you can come.
Watch it at home.
But you cannot attend it.
In the comfort of your home, just watch.
I want to know what you guys
all right. Let me give it a scientific twist. Observe.
Just observe. So,
Observe. Now, we have been talking about the devastating effects of the floods as a result of the rainfall. That started towards the end of last year, the last quarter of 2019. The Met Department has told us the rains will continue until the end of the first half of 2020. Now, this is obviously going to cause a lot of devastation across the country, especially in our infrastructure. We already know bridges swept away, roads already, the small layer of tarmac swept away. Very many roads in Nairobi also have been affected by this. We've seen people demonstrating in Mwiki. We've seen people complaining about the road in Kawangware and other parts of the city. And last week, the city county government of Nairobi decided to have something that's a bit drastic and different. So they had a meeting with the National Youth Service leadership, and the government officials of the city county government of Nairobi were asking the NYS officials to consider taking a contract from the county government of Nairobi to be the ones that repair all the dilapidated infrastructure, especially the roads in Nairobi County. And then this was, of course, hailed by the governor, Mike Mbuvi Sonko, who, of course, could not attend that meeting because he cannot attend office. But he gave it a complete stamp of approval and said, this is the way to go. This is what we ought to do. We give this job to the NYS. We remove this whole issue that we have with procurement. It reduces the lengthy procurement process. It ensures that this is a project that's going from government, county government, to a national government organ. That's the National Youth Service. So therefore, we have seamless operations. Also, it removes the cartels and the middlemen and brokers who have infiltrated our infrastructure sector. You know this happens a lot. You have seen the kind of stuff that we see where people who have been contracted to do some work don't do that work because they wanted to just get money, get paid, and then they disappear into thin air. So to ensure that we have direct service delivery, Governor of Nairobi, Mike Mbuvi Sonko, has said, let's go the NYS route. I had raised this issue before and said, NYS has the capacity, it has the manpower, it has the machinery, it has the equipment, and what it doesn't have can also be built up. The capacity to do all the infrastructure projects in the country, especially the civil works. And this morning I want to say categorically and unequivocally that the job of repairing all the dilapidated infrastructure after this current rainfall deluge should be given to the National Youth Service. Do not contract any other private companies because they're not going to deliver on time. Give this job to the National Youth Service. They are going to fix our roads. They're going to fix our bridges. Where there's an airport that needs to be fixed, they are going to fix it. And they're going to do a good job.
What is of interest is if you actually take a look at what it is that they are trained in, you will understand. And if you understand even the mandate, it becomes even clearer. One, apart from just the paramilitary training and regimentation, they are also part of the mandate is national building programs and technical and vocational training in various skills and trades. Now, these trades include construction, vector control, slum upgrade programs, traffic control, public security, agriculture. Now, tell me, if you deploy these people
into all those areas,
and yes, you make it a national service, where before you go to university, before you go to any tertiary college, not just university, everyone participates in this. There are those who may choose to remain after the trainings they've had, because not everyone will go to these colleges or the university. But you do have, as you say correctly, Eric, a workforce that has been completely underutilized. What we've seen in government installations and institutions, instead of having these private security firms that have security people who look half-starved, where you have, they look emaciated most of the time. They look tired, exhausted, and you're wondering, if this is
and you're paying a lot of money for
and
them.
You can see the effort they take to even open a gate. You realize this person is not doing very well. Where they have national youth, there is the element of discipline that you actually see. And there's a professionalism, there's a way in which they handle their business that is actually very pleasant to observe. And this is not something that you could argue and say is commonplace with the private sector as we currently have it. And remember, because they are part and parcel of the government, arguably, and because they are actually independent, I think, they would be able to do exactly what's required. Remember, the army, for instance, has what you call an engineering corps, written CORPS, okay? And for the longest time, a lot of the British Army who've trained in Kenya have attached many of their members to this engineering corps. And they've been known to build bridges, places that are far-flung. And what has been known about those bridges, and if we go by local folklore, those bridges last forever and ever and ever.
Yes.
But remember, these are engineers, after all. They just happen to be in the army. And so they know what they're doing.
They do.
The resources that we have in this country that could actually go to what you're saying, I am arguing, goes beyond just the National Youth Service. The armed forces also have that capacity. And with the training component of the NYS, there's actually no reason why we should be having the sort of problems that we currently have.
Yep.
This is where I was going to go and take this perspective, in that I weep very many times to say that
Weep not, child.
Or more, I weep. Because at some point, we ask ourselves the question and we say, why is it that we're not able to do these things that we should be able to do? And I'm just going to take an example of the last 3 days, the last 1 week in Kenya, for example. What we saw that the NYS was able to do in this country on one occasion over 3 days, from the total refurbishment of a national stadium that has been in a dilapidated state for the last 6 years, and they have been begging for money.
And whose rehabilitation works had already
been contracted. The contractor, as it were, had already received down payment. Nothing was done. We went to play an international match, for example, in the basketball court, and one side is raining inside the building. Okay? National Stadium. They were able to organize and do so seamlessly, and nobody saw any kind of hiccups because they were there. You have everything in terms of a recipe for success, but we're still not able to do it. And I think at this point, it's not because we can't. Is because we won't, or we don't realize really the capacity that is there. Because then you ask yourself that all these people that you draft into NYS because are they not drafted yearly?
Every year. Last year, 10,000.
They're drafted year. 10,000 youth.
NYS.
And are they not paid a stipend?
Yes, they are.
They're given something every month.
Yes.
Okay. So what do they do? This, I really want to understand what they do. Because I can give an example.
They are security officers at the airport.
NYSC, for example.
At government installations.
Yes.
NYSC in Nigeria, for example, it is the same thing. It was when Ayedeji instituted it in 1973, was for this same thing, nation building and development across the country. So you graduate from university and then you go to a different part of the country where you would not normally be, and you're trained in certain skills, and then you apply those skills over time. I believe the government, right now I think they've increased it, so they give you something like 10,000 shillings per month for that 9 months where you will serve in the corps.
Yeah.
But there's something that you do so that by the time you come out and you're given that certificate, there's something then that you have done. In this case, it's a program where in Kenya, you come into it and there is somebody who is your head. Is it not, generally? Under what ministry does NYS fall, for example, in Kenya? Youth. The Ministry of Youth and something else affairs, isn't it?
Yes.
So there's somebody who is the boss, and there's somebody who can then sit in this position and say, actually, you know what? We have the capacity. It's a matter of transference of budget. Move the budget. Let's do something else with it. Move the budget to these guys who can clearly do the job. Because these are people, one, who are desperate for work. Two, apart from manning airports, what else did you say?
They do a lot of stuff. So they man the government installations. They, of course, are providing security at the airport and such kind of things. They are also the ones, remember when Matiang'i said We're going to streamline operations of the registration services, the birth and death registration brought
They're
in
the
NYS.
ones who are going to do it. There's
So
a
they're
reason
available.
Why they're available, and
And they have
there's
order.
a reason why they call exactly. There's a reason why they call upon them, because they have order and they can get this thing done.
And also,
so why are we sitting on our feet,
and also
on our hands?
they're all over the country.
They're everywhere. You have the capacity to put them
And
everywhere in the
even,
country.
and what is of interest, they even have their own colleges where people are actually trained.
Yes.
So they are trained. They come out with skills that are necessary to get the things that we're talking about done.
When you talk about all the skills that you think of, like those things that you've talked about, civil works and vector works, and it means that they're trained in those and they have the capacity. So when you talk about an engineering arm of the National Youth Service, they have the full range. They have the senior level, the engineer, and then they have got the artisans below that. They are able,
And the technicians.
they have everything.
And they have a college where people are trained in this. And when you see engineering, you are talking civil.
Yes.
You are talking automotive.
Electrical.
Electrical. You're talking the whole range. The whole range. People who've trained in these colleges, believe me, are really very well trained. The ball was dropped somewhere along the line. And it's almost as though someone deliberately wanted this particular department to fail.
Yeah, and I think it's okay. Look, when you say that you have everything that you need, and then at some point, I think I brought this up in the last hour. At some point, between now finishing and then moving to we finished the training and then moving to the next level, something happens. Something happens, and I think that is what needs to be dealt with.
Graduating. Credit to them,
Moving
though,
on.
is looking at what has happened in the NYS since 2013, right? So, first of all, there was that huge national revamp of the NYS. Then we came up with NYS 1 and 2 scandals. That's financial misappropriation by some officials.
Of colossal sums.
Within the
Did you
government.
say some financial
Yes.
misappropriation?
Yes.
Some.
Okay.
Right?
Uh-huh.
But
Meaning
also
contributing to the national
To the national
misappropriation
misappropriation.
of funds. That was their
Just like-
contribution.
part of, right?
Yes.
Until they chapter did 1 and 2.
Yes, but then it was traced back to the national government, and
Yes.
the national government holding its tenterhooks on the National Youth Service, and therefore people would be able to come in and interfere with the good picture of the NYS and what it should be doing.
So it's
So
clear
they've
that
come up and revamped that, and actually come up with the NYS Act that was enacted in 2018. So it's now in force. The NYS Act has removed the Ministry of Gender Youth from operations of the NYS. It's a good thing, because now it says that NYS has a board. It can run quasi-independently. It can have a board that decides the operations and fixing everything that needs to work. And you have some sort of corporate governance. Now you're bringing corporate governance into this sort of order. It's not civil service. I mean, it's a disciplined force.
I don't think this light bulb moment has happened for only you, Eric. Somebody who then sits at a position of leadership at that board. Do you think that they have not seen this or said,
have.
we can use these fellas, right? We can use them actually to build the nation. It is in the definition of your mission. It's right there.
Yeah.
Nation building. It falls under all of this. So then why is it that not being done? There's got to be more than you can do than just manning posts. You've educated the guys.
It must come from the
full
national
circle.
government again. Just like you're saying. So if the county government of Nairobi actually goes ahead and signs a contract and deal, a long-term deal with the NYS, and says all kind of road repairs in Nairobi shall be conducted by the NYS, and this is the budget for it, and that money will be coming straight from the national exchequer going as a fast charge to paying you guys to do this job, we're going to have some very, very, very good job being done.
It
But
looks
then
like
it must
something
come
that
from there.
Well, it looks like something that should have been done yesterday, and I already know one of the arguments that will come through is that because for example,
That
all
is
this
killing private sector.
wait now, all this contracting that you're seeing coming from China, coming from wherever, it's possible that it can be done here.
Yep.
But then they'll talk about expertise, and I would say at this point, they're not well trained. Train them better.
Build that expertise.
Build it here, because you have a force strong countrywide in different pockets of the country. Use it.
There are those that also will tell you that when you do this, what are you doing to the private sector? If government is involved in everything, so what shall private sector do?
Actually,
let's
I
take
do-
a pause.
Yes.
Look at weather, and then come and start the conversation from there. Actually, that is where the city Muga will come in.
Actually, I will continue.
All right. 17 minutes past 8 o'clock. Good morning. This is the Situation Room. NYS, we have a force. We have many trained youth. This is a disciplined service. They should be used to repair all dilapidated infrastructure. Start with that. And then going forward, they become the ones that do all the civil works in the country. Good morning.
The weather with Spice FM.
We're seeing showers in certain parts of the city this morning, of Nairobi that is, at 17 degrees now. Showers will be expected through most of the day with highs of 23 and lows of 12. Over in Nakuru, we see partly cloudy conditions currently at 14 degrees. It's going to continue that way through the day with then highs of 24 and lows of 13. Looking at Eldoret right now at 14 degrees, partly cloudy conditions through the day. We're going to step over to Mombasa where it's 27 degrees right now. A warm day but with partly cloudy conditions and the possibility of rain later on in the afternoon. Malindi also right now at 28 degrees. We see partly cloudy conditions and also rain showers coming through. In Kisumu, partly cloudy conditions leading us to rain showers later with highs of highs of 31 and lows of 25. Finally, in Nyeri at 14 degrees right now, clear skies, but then partly cloudy conditions with a possibility of rain later with a high of 24 and a low of 12.
Spice and everything nice. Alright, okay. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
One of the things that perhaps ought to be understood as we have in this discussion is that it's not something that appeared or began after independence. No. The entire process and the thinking behind National Youth began actually around 1959. And it was when Tom Mboya, the late Tom Mboya, and a few of Kenyan leaders, Jim Kariuki notably, and other East African leaders visited Israel. And what they found there in terms of the youth organization, there are those who claim that, of course, the youth organization that they speak of, that was spearheading developments in Israel, was funded by the CIA. But that notwithstanding, the one thing that was clear was that there was something that was happening and youth were being not only made aware, but youth were actually being brought together to spur development. Now, Jomo Kenyatta, our former president, the late Jomo Kenyatta, was also impressed with the idea of the kibbutz, the collective farming units, meaning this whole package that came from Israel was agreeable and acceptable. And should we say they began piloting it? One, there was a complaint that many of the youth that they spoke of then didn't have the literacy level that the youth in Israel had. But what paid stayed to the coffin of this particular endeavor was 1966, when a gentleman, the MP for Embu, then a gentleman called Gigi Mbogo, moved a motion saying that he wanted to disband these Israeli-sponsored projects because they were forwarding the agenda of one individual who wanted to appear to be very great. So the problem...
Who was the individual?
Usually it's left vague, but take your pick. At that particular point in time, 66, the person of prominence was Mboya. Later, a close friend of Mboya's, Charles Njonjo, was to face the same fate. Yes. The vote of no confidence, followed by, and the drama that followed thereafter.
Right.
So, even when you have a noble program such as this one, there will be naysayers. There will be people who insist on looking at it in the most myopic way possible. Because if you do have a situation where a program that focuses on ensuring that the entire spectrum of young people actually A, have some form of training, and B, have a vocation. So whether you stay in employment or seek to do your own thing, you have something to support yourself with. How can you then say such a program is not worthwhile? How can it be? Because it is the one program that would guarantee that every Kenyan youth has an opportunity.
Has an opportunity, yes.
Whether you go then to some tertiary college, whether you go to university, whatever else you do, but you do have some fundamental training. Now, those who argue that Israel could do this because, one, Israel is surrounded by enemies. So they needed not just to train their people in some of these, in vocational training, but paramilitary training of the highest possible order. Theirs actually goes beyond paramilitary. They're actually militarily trained. So you have a whole nation of people who are trained militarily. Understandable. But the same vigor that is used, our enemies are not our neighbors. Our enemies are the same as we had at independence. Hasn't moved. It's hunger.
Ujinga.
ill health, and ignorance. Our enemies seem to have been a constant. And this is the one process that would have ensured a serious reduction of it to the process of even a near elimination of these problems that we've had. But it has been bedeviled by that particular ministry that we keep speaking of, the Ministry of Impunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate we're able to bungle things to quite a serious level, and it doesn't just go high; it actually goes quite deep as well. And it's evident that the answers to a lot of the issues that we have are right here. And I just go back to of course, African solutions to African problems, and it's the truth. It is right here with us. I mean, here, and the greatest resource that you would ever need for anything, money aside, is human beings.
Is this?
And here you have it. Right here, we're able to do it. And of course, again, we're trying to now cross over from that place where we say, okay, this is the problem, and the solution just lies a stone throw away.
Yeah.
But we're unable to connect the two.
Take it up.
Because of the fact that we're still looking for how we can steal.
It's because we have
the same way
saboteurs.
NYS that can save is where we were able to see one of the largest scandals in terms of money and how much.
And that's where the saboteurs come in. Because if you look at it, and I want to give credit where it's due, when the Jubilee government came on and decided that we want to come up with a youth program and revive NYS and dedicate a lot of resources and give it a powerful, place it under a very powerful ministry and say, this is what we want to do, revive NYS and, give them jobs to do, it was a very, very good idea. Until, of course, those guys from that other ministry that we talk about infiltrated this project and they started pilfering and basically giving it a bad name. Looking at what they did in Kibera, for example, the work that they went and did in Kibera, they were sent to Kibera, they were told, all right, we need to clean up Kibera for a bit, we need to ensure that, drainages are working, we need to ensure that there is proper lighting in Kibera. They did that job and it was beautiful. People actually talked about it and said, wow, what the NYS came and did here, beautiful. That was a beginning. And then soon after that, we started now seeing these scandals. And the scandals were brought about, and I want to say this, those scandals, when I look at it, were brought about by those same saboteurs.
Yes.
They did not want this thing to succeed.
No, they didn't.
So they wanted to find a way of ensuring that the whole country looks at NYS as, oh, come on, one of those things. And this is gobbling our cash.
And that was a good way of hiding what they were actually doing.
Yep.
Because if you look at the budget that NYS had, you cannot say that the thinking behind it was noble and it was good. All that money went elsewhere.
It was stolen.
Yes.
Putting it plainly.
Plainly, it was
that
stolen.
money was stolen.
Yes.
Right? And it ought to have been, put to good use. So when we say today that let's start with counties, let's start with the small town, let's see through this thing by Nairobi, saying that Nairobi, all the civil works in Nairobi shall be done by NYS. We're eliminating very many things. We know Nairobi is cartel city.
Right.
When you talk about, for example, garbage collection, one of the problems that we have with garbage collection in the city is because of the same cartels. Been given a contract, they ensure that they're not doing the work, but they want the money. Or they come up and they turn it into their own business. So if you give NYS the job of garbage collection, you have sorted out one side of cartel. Of course, those cartels are going to fight back. But you have order. You have ensured that Nairobi is the green city, the clean green city
in the sun. You asked the question of what happens then to private enterprise. The truth of the matter is that NYS cannot do all government projects. It is not. There are many.
Yeah.
The government has too many projects for even just one entity to do them. But the truth of the matter is, if NYS was involved and with, of course, the government compliance, you could set standards that we have relied on the Chinese to set, and yet we would have set it ourselves, right? You then guarantee that this particular sector can actually work with the private sector, again, to maintain these standards, but while at the same time training their personnel in understanding what ought to be done, whether it's through attachments, whether it's through apprenticeship, okay? But even more specific, when you have a unit that does what the national youth can do, essentially what you'll be saying is that you have government participation in every sphere of our lives. Yeah. And this has always been something that one would wish for, especially when the standards are maintained and when they're high. Unfortunately, anything that is associated with the government has also been associated with low standards, non-performance, and broken promises.
Now,
That's the
it's
unfortunate.
interesting that you say that, because if you want to look at just colleges, NYS, what we want to call TVET colleges in Kenya, NYS Institute of Business Studies, Nairobi, NYS Engineering College, Nairobi Craft School, NYS Yatta Technical Training College, the Textile College, Advanced Building School, Gilgil, NYS Technical College, Mombasa, Rural Craft School, Tarbo, NYS Driving School, Plant Operator School, Kerio Valley, Early Childhood College, Naivasha.
Everything.
What else? What else
NYS
do we
is
need?
school
What
of
don't they
government.
have?
What don't they have?
Yeah,
This is the thing. Technical college might provide some kind of
Maybe,
training for
yes.
that. So this is the thing that really irks me, and it gives me a bit of a migraine when I have to think about it, because then I say, the problems that we have, the solutions are right here, but we look at them and talk at them. And then, in fact, this thing that has then been upgraded, we want to bleed it dry and take everything that we can from it and then ask ourselves, how are we going to solve these problems?
All we want to do is ensure that NYS is able to take in so many youth, 10,000. Those
And say that
10,000
there's
youth.
there's 10,000
Those
strong
10,000
NYS.
youth. What do you need? You need uniforms. You need shoes. You need belts. You need to feed them. You need to house them. You need buses for them. So I'm going to supply.
What
so this is where the gravitate comes in.
Eric, you know
But what we
yes.
get out of the youth, we don't consider that.
Eric, you know what is of interest? It isn't as though you are starting from scratch. No. A lot of the infrastructure that comprised the national youth was built a long time ago. It's a question of simply expanding it and making sure that it meets the needs of our times. There are projects that you're starting from scratch. Like these buildings that we've been having coming up in terms of urban renewal, or surely,
Big four.
yes. This is where now you would have involved this particular the department fully. These are government initiatives anyway.
Yep.
So why not have a strong government presence in them?
You know, with all these agencies that we see, whereby any kind of money is going to be collected, and then at that you see a branch of the KRA, for example, you know, NHIF, KRA has the office somewhere there, NSSF, KRA has the office, any kind of agency that collects any kind of funding, KRA is going to be there to guide. I think this is the kind of thing that needs to happen with NYS.
You need to have NYS everywhere.
Yes,
I mean,
in every government
government department to say, okay,
Yes.
this is where we are not able to get this done. Well, here is NYS, and we can then be able to fill the gaps, as it were, because they've proven that it can be done. Do they need a little bit more training? Well, we have 11. We have 11 around the country whereby
colleges.
they can go and get this extra training if it is required.
Not
Now,
required
if the
building,
colleges,
they exist.
They exist. And if the colleges exist, I'm going to assume also that there are programs in place and that there are people who are facilitating in terms of teachers and trainers. Those people are there. Use it. Use it. Why are we sitting twiddling our thumbs and development is going down the drain?
Because we need to make money.
Who is and the we, unfortunately, is less than a 1%.
Eric, let's get our phrases right. We need to steal money.
Oh, yes. Because we need to steal money.
Yes.
From this. And allowing these guys to do this job
will prevent us from stealing the way we want to steal.
29 minutes to 9 o'clock. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Now we'll be opening up the phone lines in about a couple of minutes so you can contribute to this conversation. NYS should be given the contract to repair all the dilapidated infrastructure after this long period of rains.
Spice FM, Nyeri. Traffic.
All right, please drive safely. Poor visibility because of the rains right at the Red Hill Road. And of course, that is an avenue to get out of the Westlands traffic. But the roads are extremely slippery and the fog is quite low in Westlands this morning. So please approach with caution and then take it a little slowly because we don't want any accidents. Thika Road is bumper to bumper all the way from Allsops. You've got to be very, very patient there this morning. Coming off Mombasa Road, of course, we see that the fog is low as well. So please, you're going to have to take it slowly anyway because it's bumper to bumper traffic. It's raining in the CBD, so as you approach, just know that you're going to get into a jam as well. All right, that's what we see for now. The rain's compounding a bit of the issues that we see on the roads already. Limuru Road, Clare, all the way to town past Village Market. Langata Road, of course, we see it's starting at the barracks gate now, so you're going to have to be patient with Friday traffic. Spice of MKE, reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Many roads within the city of Nairobi have been impacted negatively by the ongoing rains and floods. Of course, they need repair. We have very many contractors who have been given the job of doing garbage collection. They have taken off. They are not doing their job as well as they should be doing. So we have a lot of garbage that needs to be collected that it's not being collected. Now, the county government of Nairobi has decided to have a conversation with NYS with a view to contracting the NYS to take up some of these jobs. So, like garbage collection, give NYS some part of garbage collection. Like repairing the roads, give NYS the contract to repair some of these roads. And I'm saying this is a very, very good thing. And in fact, we should look at expanding this and saying we have a lot of our infrastructure that has been affected by the rains. If we went through the normal process the way we normally do as people of this country, we're going to have like 6 months or 8 months of a procurement process. Advertise this thing. People come in. People complain that they take it to the tribunal that the procurement process was flawed, and it'll take us forever. And then the contractors will be given the job. They'll
in May
next year, and then they'll take their equipment to the ground, and they'll not be paid. And by December 2021, the job will never have started. So,
and then you'll have people telling you how they're going to build roads for you.
Yes.
Roads they should have repaired in the first place.
In 2022 campaigns, it'll be, you see, this government, it has not even done roads. And then the other ones will be saying, you see, we have contractors on the ground repairing the roads.
Yeah.
But no work actually being done.
They will even tell you that these roads would have been built if it wasn't for the locusts.
Oh, yes. In fact, vector control, locusts, right, City?
Yes, it is.
So NOS has a capacity to be deployed to deal with these locusts.
Yes.
But where are we? We're not utilizing the NYS.
Yes.
We should be utilizing NYS.
Well, the point of conflict with giving work to a government department has always been against the backdrop, as I said, of skyrocketing records of failure by many other government units. But having said that, if we just pause for a while and just put the negativity, which is also true, aside for a while and consider, with the introduction of the national youth into these programs, would we not then be injecting a certain level of positivity? Remember, for the longest time before Kura and Kenha came into being, you had district road engineers whose job it was to ensure, not build, maintain roads. If you look at the problems we have with our road, it's maintenance. The road exists, but you have to wait for the crack to become a crater for you to attend to it.
Yeah, you wait for the pothole, the little pothole that starts as just
not even a pothole. It's
just a dent,
a small.
And
little,
rather
yes.
than, and have you seen? I'll give the example of Japan, for example. If you want to look at what they do, a crack happens. People finish, they go home, and they shut down that road overnight.
And they work on it
They
overnight.
put their beams overnight. You, who was on that road today, you come tomorrow morning and it's as good as new.
Yes, crack.
They're done. Finish. Move on to the next. But we'll look at this crack. We look at it.
You figure,
then we'll say, okay,
you
it's
almost
not so
get the
bad
impression
right
that they look for people to dig it up.
Yeah.
So that it actually becomes big.
It grows over time. Meanwhile, you have the machinery to get it done. You just refuse to get it done. Then now you're looking for road amongst potholes. Later, by the time one year down the line.
Do you have any idea just how much equipment this ministry had for repairing roads in every district in the country?
Everywhere. MOW.
Yes. Ministry of Works. It was their job. Believe me, the equipment was bought, it was there. And do you also know that there is a department that we have within this country that deals with nothing else other than mobilizing such equipment? Yeah. Government. You don't have to buy the equipment. They actually already have them. So it's a question of, and then you'll find that with the county and the systems that we have, members of parliament, some of them used their CDF to even buy equipment to ensure, for instance, what you use for paving the roads, upgrading the roads. They have them. It isn't done. So this, if you simply said, okay, there seems to be a teeth-pulling exercise with this one, let National Youth just attend to this one. Yeah.
Let's just do it.
Yes.
When MOW was doing stuff, they could do everything. They'd build offices.
They did.
Even the fences.
They did.
Remember, when you see those fences, the concrete poles.
It's them.
That have, the concrete
like a
pole.
small curve at the top.
It has a curve at the top, and then it's barbed wire. And you knew this is government. It's MOW. It was very clear that they could do that. So MOW is gone. Now, why don't you just give it back to the government?
And give it to National Youth. Because
Give it to the
believe
National
me,
Youth Service.
the reason why MOW was considered so highly is because they did an excellent job.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, remember, these were government officers who were paid. Salary involved repairing roads. Huh?
Yes.
Salary involved getting your work done.
Yes, yes. Now we have a situation where somebody salaried and they're asking, so what are you giving me for doing this?
Yeah.
So you don't even know where to start. So what do you think your job is?
Why were you there in the first place?
Yes.
It's like somebody saying, okay, well, I came to work and I just sitting around waiting for... Why are you there? And I think then again, it goes back to the questions that we need to ask ourselves. Those who then, give them the power by going to the ballots in the first place. Asking the question, critically looking at it and saying, is this individual actually going to do what is required of them? Whether they're doing their job or in this case, making a decision like this to say, okay, well, all these other things have not worked. A road in Outer Ring that has been prepared for the last 17 years. People have been using this road for 17 years, waiting for it to be fixed. I mean, isn't it laughable that we're even talking about such things and then we're talking about playing on the world stage? Are you kidding? Where are we going? Meanwhile, we have the machinery right here to be able to get things sorted. I'll take you to Nigeria, for example. Another example, the first president of Nigeria, Nnamdi Azikiwe, died. They built the road to his village when they were burying him. They said, it's necessary for us to bury this man, founding father. The road, national highway, was only constructed when the man was going to be buried because government officials, God forbid, that they drive on a dilapidated road. So you knew all this time, and you knew that you had the wherewithal to have something.
You could have done it earlier.
Could
but
have
you
done it
didn't.
earlier. Could have maintained it all these years. Could have made sure that the job for which you're asked to sit in government to actually do and fulfill, that you're actually doing it. It's a joke, man.
Every time we come up and talk about the problems we have, we sometimes at a loss for words as to suggest possible solution. Here we have one.
We have a solution. This is it right here.
Yes.
We talk about our private sector and you're saying, private sector is going to lose out on business. But look at what the private sector is doing. So let's just take a look at Nairobi. Mwiki, private sector, company, deployed, given the contract, has not done anything. Gitanga Road, same thing is happening.
Naivasha Road,
same thing is happening. In fact, now in Parklands Road as well, they're near MP Shah, from MP Shah going to the Sarit Center roundabout. So these guys, they came in with their machinery, they dug up the road, they took off. Now, when you're going to MP Shah Hospital, it's actually, it's a dirt road.
It is.
In Nairobi. And they've taken off. You haven't seen them on site. A company that was given a job to do the Ring Road Parklands from the mall roundabout going to join Limuru Road has taken over 10 years to do this job. Private sector. Forget this private sector story. Let's just give it to NYS.
No,
private sector,
at the
if
same
you have
time-
not done it, just...
At the same time, private sector exists because of two things. One, there's a gap or there's somebody who's applying their creativity. Is okay. This one that they've not been able to do all this time, let it move to somebody else. They will find and be able to create another niche somewhere else. They're very fluid in how they're able to then
They'll see opportunity
they'll find
elsewhere.
an opportunity elsewhere. But in this one that has not been working all this time, and again I go back to the people, that the people continue to suffer for something for which a solution lies right in front of you. Come on. They'll find another way. It sounds so simple, but I think at some point, rather than complicate matters, take the simple route. In this case, it's going to work. It will work.
When President Kibaki first brought the Chinese contractors to sort of like build our roads, did we not hear a huge hue and cry from the private? Did he move? No. And he said, these are the same jobs you guys have been given and you've done diddly squat.
Yes.
Meaning nothing happens. Here you have someone who has been brought in. You can actually see what they're doing. You can see.
And they work overnight.
Yes. Did those contractors die? No.
No, they didn't.
Did they lack things to do?
Unfortunately, they didn't die.
They
When
didn't.
those Chinese were working on this Mombasa Road, remember, under Kibaki 1,
Yes.
they decided to expand Mombasa Road from 2 lanes to 3 lanes.
Yes, was it 3 or 4? In some places, 4.
In some places, 4 lanes. They would work at night. So at night,
While
10 p.m.,
while people were using the road, they didn't shut down the road.
10 p.m., they close off a section of the
said
road. They
build.
expand. Tomorrow morning, it's open. So here, we're talking about that section at Yaya Center.
Yes.
They closed off a road for an entire week.
And nothing happened for an entire
Day
week.
and night, 24 hours, closed off a section that is less than a
And
kilometer
then
long.
you want us to talk about local entrepreneurs. They've worked themselves out of a job. If what you've been given in the past, what you've shown is that you can't do it, let somebody else who can take the job. It's not complicated.
That's what I'm saying. In some cases, when you want to look at something that's so complicated, you say, okay, how are we going to go about this? What do we do? Certain things need to be put in place. We need to have a discussion, and then thereafter, a report needs to be written. After the report, then there needs to be the establishment of a task force. No. This one is simple. It's very clear. It is not working. Remove it. Take it away from their hands and let's get this thing moving. We can't continue to be in limbo like this over. I mean, for how long?
Back and forth, back and forth. It's the same story every day, back and forth. You know, we're looking at the procurement process. How long is it going to take us to procure? So why are you saying that this is going to be procured only to one government agency? Why is government involving itself in stuff that it should not be doing? The government's job should be on policy and law and maintenance of law and order, not in doing some of these things. Argument upon argument. Upon argument. Upon argument.
Baseless.
And it takes us forever. We need to be developing as a country. We're not.
You know, if you have the sort of problems we have and you don't take drastic action, nothing will change.
Let's go back to the Chinese, for example. We keep giving, shedding light on these 30 years where they were insular, and they talked about how they basically created global factories within their country. They did not speak to anyone. Do you mean to tell me that they imported this labor from another country?
No, they used their own labor.
They used what they had. Where they made mistakes, and I keep talking about these 12 5-year plans that they have. Currently, they're on number 9. We're looking at them and we're saying these guys have reached. No. They're on number 9.
Mm-hmm. But
they
by
still
the way,
have 3 to go.
They did have foreign expertise.
Foreign expertise, but
did,
who
but
was
they learned
doing
very
learned
quickly.
very quickly, and then they transferred that expertise locally.
And they were deliberate about it.
They said, which is what I'm saying. If we're going to get somebody to come and show you the way, take it for some time. After that, transfer it to yourselves and move. Then they were able to move. Until now, they're unrivaled on the globe. Unrivaled. Until others are now employing their services. And they say, okay, they have built cities where people don't live in China.
They complete a city from scratch.
From nothing.
With a university, with road, with parks, with shopping centers, with dormitories, with schools, with kindergarten, high school.
And there are no
everything.
people.
Everything is done. And then now we say now.
And who is doing it? The Chinese.
Themselves.
They're the ones doing it for themselves.
Let's take this call from Paul in Mombasa. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Wow, Happy New Year.
And happy Valentine's Day as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Happy Valentine's to you too. I don't know how you're going to do it, 2 gentlemen and 1 lady.
Don't worry. I keep them.
After the show, we're going for the men's conference.
I'm coming with
The
them.
lady, welcome.
I'm going by fire, by force. I followed them.
Welcome to Mombasa, the lady.
Thank you very much.
So I would like to contribute to the show. Mm-hmm. I think the Kenyan story is unique and very interesting every time. Mm. It's a nice book that we are supposed to be reading every day. Mm. You know, what I'm looking at, I had some chat with some serious contractor in Mombasa. Mm-hmm. And he keeps maintaining a certain road in Mombasa. I think I won't mention. Mm. Every year he's on that road, I think twice or so. So I asked him, why don't you just do this road once? And he told me, so when I do it once, where will I get? Where will I eat
tomorrow?
Yes. So that is the
situation,
in Kenya, and which is the replication of it, the whole country. Mm. So NYS can do a very good job, but is the goodwill there? The question, the best thing is to have the president just have the spine and tell it like it is. Mm-hmm. Get these wrong people out of the way and do the thing the way it's supposed to be done. I think it's being done in Rwanda and it's working, and it can be done elsewhere. So let us just stop all these these contractors are very good. But when they come, even the Chinese right now, they have been corrupted. They've
started behaving.
Job,
yes,
and they go because they have learned the route.
They don't go. They don't go.
They go to the next one.
They're still here.
They stay actually.
Right, they stay.
They go to the next one.
The whole thing is the attitude.
Yeah,
and the president up there to do his job. That's it.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Enjoy your Valentine.
I'm coming to Mombasa.
Please come.
Let's take a short break at 13 minutes to 9 o'clock. This is a situation room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're still taking your phone calls as well. 0719-012-600. What do you think? Should NYS be co-opted to do all the civil works, especially the repair of roads and bridges across the country? Good morning.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
Sami in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
We're fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay. I wanted to contribute to the show.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. About I'm in total agreement with the county government of Nairobi. Yeah, because apart from maybe reducing the cartels in the city, it also encourages competency. You know, this private sector, they've been behaving as if they're under a single management. Because you get at times maybe the problem with the contractors in Kisumu is the same problem the Nairobi County government is facing. So at times you get the contractors. It's as if there's a forum for all of them, and now they decide this is what we're gonna do with the contract that we are being given. So you get there's a lot of incompetency. So I'm in total support with the idea of government of Nairobi to have talks with the NYS if they can do our job. In fact, the guys are good. They have what it takes to perform.
They're capable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Samin Kisumu. Have a good day. 0719-012-600. You know, you were giving the example earlier of NYS and what it did last week. Over the weekend at Nyayo National Stadium.
Right.
The renovation works for Nyayo National Stadium was supposed to be complete in 90 days, but that did not happen. 3 years later, the stadium remained closed with the renovations far from over. On Sunday, the president drove to the venue to inspect the refurbishment work. Kenyans were far from impressed, and Nyayo Stadium, with the government blatantly refused to repair to be usable for sports, but now it has to get a facelift because of a funeral service. That's besides the point. The point is, within a short time, contractor car kando, NYS come in, NYS did the job.
This is why I think that
Are we still going to pay this contractor because we've entered into a contract?
Actually, we should penalize him. You are talking about paying. Why has he not done the job in the time stipulated? He may say he wasn't paid. Why did he then not pull out officially and say, I am unable to do this thing because of A, B, C, D?
And then why did they call on NYS? Why did they call on NYS?
Because they know.
Exactly. Because they are aware that there is a machinery in place that can actually do this job. So why have they been wasting time and money and all of these folks who've been sitting around for 4 years and not gotten the job
So they
done?
knew about
They knew
NYS even
about
when they were
NYS.
giving the contract.
Yes.
in the
But
first
remember,
place.
earlier on, we were talking about a situation where a former CS is being accused of falsely luring certain foreigners with a deal that was supposed to help them procure an arms contract for the country. Is that not so?
Yes.
Now, part of the reason why these things survive is because the biggest money that many people make is by doing business with the government.
Government, yes.
And many contractors have political contacts.
Yes.
They have political affiliations. That's why they get the jobs, and that's why they're even protected. That's why nothing seems to happen to them.
That's why they don't want anything to change.
And they're the conduit through which politicians make money. And I am certain that if you look closely, you'll actually find that the collusion is very clear. People have a discussion and say, so and so, okay, sasa hii ni yako. Stadium is yours. Yes. Yeah, we've given you. Yeah, so this noise you're making, can you
just be quiet for some time?
Keep quiet.
Zachary.
Hi, sir.
How are you?
Oh, fine, thank you, guys.
Umepewa ka contract fulani, maybe in Nakuru somewhere, repair the market.
Okay, I want to let me recall a certain episode that I had.
Yes.
That okay, I had a dispute with my former employer, and when I decided to resign, we disagreed on the benefits, and I sought the help of a lawyer, and you know what? The guy first of all asked me, how much, what was your basic salary, okay? And then, of course, I disclosed, Oh, and the guy was agog. He told me, oh, hang on there. He took a notebook and asked me, how on earth do you survive on this amount? You see?
Mm.
So it was like I give him a lecture on how you survive on such a small amount. And to cut my whole story short, the guy told me, unless I maybe do your work on pro bono when I'm free, I only represent the guys from the government because they have money. Let me tell you, Mr. Latis, do you see the amount of money that you guys, the three of you earn? That is somebody's, in this Kenya, that is somebody's
daily income.
Not daily income, small change. Okay?
Yeah.
And therefore, to maintain the status quo, what you are saying is very good. It's a very good policy that we can streamline our public services through engaging such guys from the national service. But in a certain corner, okay, somebody is actually not happy with you because now these guys are saying that we streamline our things. Where shall I be able to fund my?
Where shall I eat
be able to get my money to fund my ministry queens and my
It's true, Zachary.
Like you think you go to hell.
Thank you.
I know what you are saying. And you guys have a nice weekend.
Asante, pia wewe. Have a happy Valentine's Day.
I'm actually looking forward to you guys starting going out and you come to a place like Nakuru and we have a cup of tea.
We will do that.
Sour.
Thank you. You change from drink to cup of tea.
Okay. Have a nice time.
Thank you, Zachary.
Cheers.
Mohammed in Malindi, good morning.
Good morning, all of you.
Good morning. Fine, thank you.
I just wanted to know how far we reach with the 2030 vision. Because I've heard about the 12-year, Chinese vision. Yeah.
Our vision 2030 is, I think, on the it's broken into 5-year projects. So you can imagine now we, of course, in the second last 5-year project.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing, I just wanted
the actual progress of the stuff.
That's a different question.
I want
the
to know
pillars.
about the progress.
Yes.
Yeah.
The progress has been slow.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and what we hear of is words assuring us that there is progress, but the actual progress, if you look closely, it is more fictional than it is true.
Okay.
Yes, that is the reality of many of our projects. It is budgeted for, we even started, but the completion, no one can tell you where it is or when it is. There's a possibility of that completion actually coming to be.
There's a reason you're asking this, Mohammed.
Tell us why you're asking.
Yeah. You see, I'm from a technical background.
Yes.
I'm a technical teacher.
Yes.
So, see, I just wanted to, it's just an advice. See, I think the best way to encourage our youth to think about technical training, they have to go through the NYS before joining the university. Maybe 2 years. It should be mandatory. That's just that's just an idea.
And we thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, I think that way they'll even expose our young to technical training.
Yes.
Yeah, because most of them, they don't like technical courses, vocational and technical.
Yeah.
I've read it in the papers. Yeah. Yeah, that is just a suggestion.
Good point, Mohammed, and thank you very much. How is Malindi today?
It's a little bit raining here.
It's raining.
Yeah, but see, the beaches are flooded with Valentine's, whatever you call it.
Whatever
That's a
we
good
call
thing,
it.
right?
that Valentine.
Yeah,
thank you, Mohammed.
That's why we are okay now.
Asante, Mohammed. Have a good one.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Yep. So the conversation, of course, continues on our social media platforms as well. Spice FM KE on Facebook, on Twitter, as well as Spice FM KE on YouTube. Or you can post in your comment and tell us what you think of what we've been discussing. It's about NYS taking up the job. Why wouldn't the government go this route? Apart from, the first one, the obvious one that we're saying.
Well, it's the associative processes. You don't just get a job until a government contract unless you're connected. That's where it begins. And with the connection, you get that job at a fee. So it's intertwined with that ministry we spoke of, and it's also intertwined with our politicians. It has deep roots. So, I mean, if you are talking about changing that structure, For some people, it's like removing food from their mouths.
And of course, in this case, when
Yes.
when you're looking at saying we have the answers right there in front of us, this impunity that we've seen actually goes a lot deeper than we actually appreciate, because it's got to be some stuff with some serious force for you to see that things are not happening in a country, and you actually have the solution in your hand, but still you choose not to do anything about it.
Remember, corruption
Must be
is
very
normal
deep.
in this country. Pilferage is normal. Impunity is normal.
It's our way of life.
So until a decision is made or something happens that shakes people, the YT thing didn't shake. It sort of like got people to look up. But shaking means 3 or 4 people go to jail, for sure, and we see them wearing those delightfully striped pajamas that people who are in jail wear.
And then their wealth is taken away.
Now that one really will be the clincher, where it is clear that when you leave prison, you will be poor. Or you will go back to factory settings. Yes, where you were before. That now, people will take notes and realize that perhaps they don't really want that money that the contractor was giving them. But up until that time, no. They will go their merry way. Remember, you talk about China's development. One of the things that China has done over the years, they have ignored international treaties.
Right.
They have ignored things like patent rights. So they'll sign a contract with some big, say, manufacturer. They'll manufacture for you. But their own factories will copy that particular manufactured product, call it their own, and damn the patent rights.
Right.
And in so doing, they reduce the cost of even that very product even lower than it previously was known. So the development, even as we lay praise at their feet, we must also look at how it is that they've gotten where they've gotten.
Yeah, and of course, people will realize that, as we say, money sweet, but freedom sweet pass.
The conversation continues. We're coming up to 9 o'clock. In the next hour, we're going to have a guest on the hot seat. This is Nanjala Nyabola. She's a writer. She's an advocate. She's a political analyst. She's an author of a book called Digital Democracy, Analog Politics. How the internet, of course, is shaping our democracy. And the question we'll be asking is technology the key to free and fair elections in Kenya? Good morning.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Right,
Traffic.
looking a little bit better on Mombasa Road this morning, and we saw that we had a gridlock from about 8 o'clock till, just now. It will look a little better as you get past the Bellevue and then heading towards, Bellevue rather, and then heading towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. Is it raining in the CBD? Yes, it is. So it means that as you approach the CBD, you need to approach with caution, and the roads are slippery, so take it a little bit easy. Heavy traffic on Langata Road this morning. It's probably going to be that way until evening because of what we see. And we actually have now individuals stepping out their cars trying to man traffic. There's poor visibility around Westlands and the Red Hill bypass, as it were, so please be careful as you approach that. Coming out of traffic hour, we'll see what it looks like in about a half hour or so, but for now the eastern and southern bypasses can still be used if you're stuck anywhere. Let us know what you see. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Let's keep it moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2 minutes past 9 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? This is a Situation Room, the only way to start your day. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting in 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 90.9 in Nyeri, 96.7 Eldoret, 97.7 in Malindi. Live streaming the show on www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We have a guest in the studio on the hot seat this morning, Nanjala Nyabola, writer, advocate, political analyst, author of a book that talks about looking at digital democracy and how far we are going, whether, and having all these technology things are actually entrenching democracy in our electoral system. Welcome, Nanjala.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining
things.
us.
You're welcome.
This technology thing,
Yes.
Are we are we in the right direction?
In general,
Yes.
it depends on how you define direction. I think one of the arguments that I make in my book is that technology reflects the values and the interests of the people who build it. And so the people who build it and the people who use it. And so, it's a mixed bag. There's a kind of a sense of a 2 steps forward, 2 steps back situation. We've had some really good developments in terms of opening up the public sphere. The fact that you guys are able to stream this conversation online, people are able to call in, people are able to tweet at you, opening up the public sphere in that way. We've had a couple of 2 steps back, opening up our political processes to manipulation and to opacity in a way that we can't even see what the manipulation is, and therefore it's difficult to hold people accountable for it. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, and it's going to continue to reflect, I think, the ambiguity of our social and political system at the moment.
Well, let's jump into it. What is this manipulation you speak of?
I think overall, around the world, there's been a trend to introduce technology as a way of creating accountability in electoral processes. And it's important to note that even though I've written a book about Kenya, this is a global conversation. Last week we were talking about the Iowa caucus in the US because they introduced an app to manage that, and that app has turned out to make the caucusing, and caucusing is already a complicated process. It's turned out to make it even more opaque, even more difficult. So people elections have become incredibly contested spaces, and they've become incredibly expensive and profit-making spaces. And one of the things is this tech solutionism is like, if we just throw tech at the problem, it can untangle some of the underlying structural issues. So it can make, for example, increased participation, it can increase that's the theory. It will increase transparency, it will help us make elections more accountable, etc. But the reality is turning out to be the opposite. If I go to a ballot, if I go to a polling station and I check someone's name off a piece of paper and I put it in a box, and you want to count those ballots, you take them out and you count them. It's very straightforward. But with a digital election, with an electronic election, what happens is all of our data goes into a platform, it goes into an app, it goes into software that we don't necessarily understand. And so like what you saw in Kenya, for example, in 2017, if you were following the courtroom processes, is that the judges didn't understand what the tech was doing. They didn't understand what the tech was doing. They were using and this is not, again, it's not a Kenyan problem. They were using analogies, they were using comparisons, they were bringing in, it's like if you do this and then you do that, it's like if you're in a football match and then you do this and then you do that. But that's not... that's reasoning by analogy. Is not necessarily 100% clear that you understand that the algorithm is doing this, or that the IP that's owned by this company to build the software was doing that. And that's how you end up in a situation where we're told, the servers are in France and the people who build who have the data are asleep.
So are you essentially saying that even if people are participating using this technology, for example, that we see with a lot of new media and such, if they don't understand the processes behind all of this, that essentially then it is not democratic because they're not comprehending the process? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, to an extent, yes, because what you have to understand with tech is that the people who build it own it. And they are the ones who understand how it functions best. What we are essentially doing is you're putting all this data that was formerly And again, you don't want to romanticize what was there before, because we've been voting here for 25 years. So we know in the longer system, we know that everything has its quirks and its ticks. But say, for example, a company builds you a software to run an election. They are the ones who understand exactly what happens in that software. They're the ones who understand, for example, how it goes from the polling station to the constituency level to the county level, and then to the NTSA, to the National Tallying Center, NTC. Those are the people who are able to understand how is it one vote that goes into the graphics, for example, that are distributed in the NTC. They're the ones who understand how to aggregate that data. They're the ones who understand how to translate that data into the output. And in an ideal world, all of that information would be transparent. India, for example, has open source protocols for its election, for a lot of its government related software platforms. So you can't use proprietary information to build a system that the government is going to use. It has to be something that anybody who, people can access the protocols. Anybody who wants to replicate that should be able to do that easily.
It sounds to me like we are really complicating something so as straightforward.
Well, this is the problem.
It's voting. 4 of us in this studio, we cast our ballot. Those are 4 votes.
That's
complicated.
Issue just goes up. I mean,
well, this is the issue that I bring up in the book. Is the problem with Kenya's election was a trust deficit. The problem with Kenya's election systems was always a trust deficit, that we didn't believe that the people who are counting were counting the right way. And I make this line, I have this line in the book where I say, the Gambia voted out a 22-year-old dictatorship using marbles. You go to the polling station, you pick your bano, you put your bano in the drum. At the end, they count all the banos in the drum, and they say, oh, this guy has 22,000 banos. This guy has won the election.
Yeah.
The problems that we're trying to use technology to resolve, and it's not that linear. They're much more complicated conversations that we need to have about the trust that we have in institutions. The most important person in any election, unfortunately, is not even the person who votes. It's the person who counts the votes. So when we're trying to build all of these systems, are we actually addressing the trust deficit? Are we actually addressing the procedural issues? Are we actually addressing the transparency issues that have gone into building our electoral systems?
I hear you saying this. I was hoping you'd say integrity.
I mean, look, I try not to talk in cliches, because I think integrity has become a bit of a cliche in Kenya. We have Chapter 6. We have all of these...
Oh, no. I wasn't even going there.
No.
I was talking about the human element and the integrity that you anticipate and expect from the people who acquire the system that we speak of, the people who program the system that we speak of. The people who actually count it come last in that particular food chain, because all these things could have been primed so that the person who actually is involved in counting is just a cog in the wheel, and whether he counts or not, certain things could have been predetermined. I'm not saying that it's not important. I'm simply saying this. There's a human element in all these processes that cannot be ignored. And that's why I mentioned the idea of maybe integrity is overused and a little tired, but it has to come in.
I agree completely. And that's really, again, as I said, the core argument is you have to look at the values of the people who are building the systems and the values of the societies, the people who are using the systems.
I'm thinking that we are taking too much attention to the value of the people who are building the system. The system is as simple as that.
No.
It should be. Look.
You would think so.
Let's
wish so. You would wish so.
Let's look at what we were doing before we started saying, let's go electronic. You have a box, right? And you have ballots. You tick, you put it in this box. It is sealed. You break the seal, you count. It is that simple. Now, the next point is transmitting this same vote that you've counted here from this point to the next point. And that's where technology came in. That, let's shorten this distance. Let's make sure that the same box that was opened here has been resealed, arrives uncompromised. Now, technology means that you've just put it here,
Eric,
and then it transmits.
Reality.
So why are we talking about, algorithm? What does algorithm need to look at? Whether Eric was actually a male human being, whether Eric
I
should have
actually
voted.
had brought in
Eric
algorithms,
voted.
And the system matrix hasn't come into this discussion. You are talking about the theory of these things. Reality of our voting system, ballot boxes have been found in rivers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ballot boxes
filled with blankets.
Yes. Ballot boxes have been found in buildings where they shouldn't have been in the first place.
True.
Ballot boxes come stuffed. So these are the realities.
And that's why we remove that by saying, now let's have a very clear system here. Tick,
Yeah, but
Tick.
it's still a ballot box.
You put it, yes, but you tick and you put it onto this system. And what does this system do? It's basically just counting. 1, 2, 3,
That's
4,
where the
5.
integrity that I spoke of came
And
in
1, 2, 3, 4,
because
5 moves from here and it's being accessed by Nanjala on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
in theory it ought to work, shouldn't
So
it?
the algorithm of saying it, I don't know what is this algorithm doing?
It's not
Looking
about
at 1, 2, 3, 4,
it's
5.
not it's not about
Looking at
algorithms.
the
No, it
integrity of
isn't.
the system.
It's not
the
about-
person who built the system.
Yes.
It's simple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No, it isn't.
It actually isn't. So if you think about the Kenyan case, for example, you have to go back, first of all, to procurement. The law says that the people who build the system have to be procured through an open
tender.
that people have to submit their procurement. That actually didn't happen. It was a single source tender. And so that's already one thing that started the process of going wrong. Then from procurement, it raised questions. First, then from procurement, you go to actually building the system. As I said, in other countries, when a government is using data, using proprietary information means that all the information that's collected that is used to build a system belongs to that company. So, for example, our election data, right? If it's used, even if you say, I'm giving you 100,000 voter names from the registry so that you can design the system, any information that person builds, unless there's very strong contracting around that issue, then belongs to that company. That's already a question mark, right? Why should information that we generate as citizens on behalf of our government to govern us be owned by a company, by a single company, and be used to build a platform that we don't have any kind of control over? Then comes the process of identification. Right? Because that was another point at which technology was introduced. And the whole idea of that was that we didn't want there to be shadow voting or ghost voting or whatever.
Yes.
Biometrics are based on, are predicated on a certain number of characteristics. For example, your fingerprints, your iris scan. In Kenya, we focused only on fingerprints. If you're a farmer and you've been farming for 31 years, odds are you don't have fingerprints. Like your hands have been rubbing on that djembe for so long that you actually have managed to rub off your fingerprints. If you're a woman who is accustomed to removing your pot from the fire with your bare hands,
them off, right?
You've burnt your fingerprints off. That's already a point that we have to address in terms of inclusion, in terms of creating representative systems. Like, it's not about, when we use the word algorithms as like a blanket statement, but the fact is it's bigger than that. Algorithms don't even come into this equation. What we're talking about is, are we building technology premised on making our societies more inclusive, more representative, more just? Or are we building technology in a way that it creates more obstacles between the citizen and their government? It reduces the accountability between the citizen and their government. And I go back to the Kenyan process again, because I watched that Supreme Court proceeding, like it was, the rich also cry. And one of the things that really, that's a veteran Twitter joke. But, one of the things that really comes across is, again, this lapse in accountability. When my election data, me as a voter, I give it to the IEBC, and you go into the courtroom and you say to me, we can't open the servers because the servers are in France and the people in France are asleep, that's a problem. That's an accountability problem.
That's conflating issues.
Problem.
Yes.
No,
but
it's not.
It's
absolutely
bringing in another issue.
not.
Look.
Because the fundamental issue.
Eric, why do you say
Let me wrap up my point. Let me wrap up my point. The fundamental issue is technology making our government better, or is it making it worse?
Is it?
And that's really that's really the question that I want people to grapple with in this question.
Do you present an attempt at a response
to that? I mean, from what you have written,
the book is available.
For what you've written and what you're, it's important. You're here with us.
No, I'm
no.
Bro, I'm
you're here with us. So in this case,
the book is good.
Yeah.
Do you have a copy with you?
No, I don't.
So answer the question.
In this case,
let me tell you where you can get it.
What is your perception? Because obviously you've written this to send it out to people with something in mind, right?
Yeah.
So what is it?
I am a political analyst. My job is not to give you the answers. My job is to make sure that we're starting from the right questions. And the right question, I think right now for me, what I did with this book was to bring the right questions back into the room. I think we started with the wrong questions. I think the wrong question was always, how can technology fix us as a society? And I think that's the wrong question.
What is the right question?
I think the right question is, what is wrong with the systems that we already have in place?
Trust.
Exactly. And if there's a trust deficit, can technology really address a trust deficit? No. How do we
And
increase
you're
it? How
advancing
do we
that
address?
mistrust. When you bring in other
How
issues
do we
like
address
who's
the trust
the custodian of this
deficit?
data that I'm giving?
It's important.
You see, that's the trust issue.
Trust,
Yeah.
no, trust and
If
the
you've given this issue to
manifestations of
IBC and IBC has taken it to industrial area somewhere,
CT, yeah.
industrial area.
somewhere.
Yes.
I got derailed.
Okay.
Finish your question, City. I'll ask mine.
Trust, by its very definition, points to an outcome, a consequence. In the absence of certain things happening, you cannot talk about trust, and thereby you can also not talk about a trust deficit. I would have asked the question, what is it that brings about the mistrust, which you're referring to as a trust deficit? Before you get to mistrust, there's usually distrust. Okay? So what are the things that cause these things? Because it's like we are going to the end of this particular product and saying, this is the outcome. Okay, fine. That we understand.
But what happened along the way
That
made
that
them
got us here.
arrive at that place?
That got us here because it wasn't always there, or if it was, it wasn't as prominent as it is now. Because with the deficit that you speak of, there is nothing that will be trusted. It doesn't really matter. The mistrust begins with the IEBC. Malawi right now having that same problem. They want the equivalent of the IEBC out. All right? We have a problem with our politicians. We have a problem with our government. So if we have a problem with these people and they're the ones responsible for the equipment that's supposed to help us understand how far do you think we're going to go?
That's the question. That's precisely the
Now,
question.
Thank you for going along with me. Now let me get you to where I was going, okay? When you say you do what it is that you do, surely you can't just ask a question and then not provide a possible way forward.
Why not?
Well, why shouldn't you?
Why should I?
If you're so good at analyzing a problem, it therefore means that you have an indication or you have an understanding
Of a solution.
of what could be done.
Absolutely.
I'm not using the word solution. What could be done?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we have this misconception about what the point of doing political analysis is. I'm not, and especially of knowledge making, and this is for me a broader philosophical a position that I take. We have this idea that they are custodians of knowledge, and their job is to sit in the ivory tower to disseminate knowledge down, and we, the lowly people, then absorb that and
where
I
did
try
we
to
lonely people come?
Exactly.
How did we come up with that idea?
Hang on.
If
Hang
it
on.
wasn't passed on to us,
chill.
By this lofty.
Chill.
Okay, I will.
So we have this idea. This is
Please.
this is the epistemological framework that we use, that the academy uses. That we have all of these handful of people who have the knowledge and they disseminate it down. But what I try to do is I try to break out of that mold. I think that ordinary people, I think people like myself, I think people on the street have the power to unpack issues, have the power to decide what kind of society they want to live in, to build that. And so my approach to things is always, look, I'm not going to tell you how to get to the promised land. That's something that we have to work out as a collective.
Yep.
My goal is to give you the tools to figure out what your place is in that journey. My goal is to give you an idea of where you start by starting to ask you the right questions. I don't think it's my job to fix Kenya. I don't think of myself, I don't think of myself, I don't have that sense of inflated ego where I believe that I am the only person who can point a roadmap to fix this country.
Join the group of
Let's
people
take a
who
break.
think and believe
exactly.
that solutions are possible.
Exactly. By asking the
chill,
right question.
Nanjala, freeze.
Ice,
Ndu.
frost.
Are you ready? Let's look at the weather. Good morning. 21 minutes past 9.
Spice FM, Nakuru. The weather with Spice FM.
Right, experiencing some showers in Nairobi and different parts of the city. Currently at 17 degrees. You're going to experience highs of 27 and lows of 12 today. In Nakuru at 14 degrees. Also showers expected later, currently with partly cloudy conditions. Partly cloudy conditions in Nyeri at 12 degrees still. It will rise to a high of 25 and a low of 12 today with showers expected later. 29 degrees in Malindi. Showers expected through the most parts of the morning, and partly cloudy conditions as well. In Mombasa at 28 degrees, we expect a high of 33 and a low of 24 with showers through the afternoon. In Eldoret at 14 degrees now, partly cloudy conditions, expecting a high of 27 and a low of 14.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
The conversation continues right here on Spice FM, broadcasting on 94.4 in Nairobi. Nanjala Nyabola, writer, advocate, political analyst, author of the book Digital Democracy, Analog Politics. And we're looking at where we are as a country, all right? And so you are explaining why you did not provide any solutions in your book. And of course, it makes sense that, you're raising the issues and the conversation that needs to happen. You're starting the conversation. But
that's
we're asking for your
contribution.
We are asking for your perspective. So
On
now,
what?
as we contribute to this discussion,
But on what specifically?
A possible solution
To what?
to the issues you've raised.
You see, this is exactly the challenge. The issues that I've raised are incredibly multifaceted. So if you're asking me what is the solution to fixing trust,
not solution, possible solution.
Yeah. If you're asking what is the solution or possible solution to fixing trust in a society, I think that we have to start by first of all, simplifying the way we understand the political processes, and especially giving the people the tools to understand what the point of political processes is. I think elections have become far too detached from people's social and economic reality. I think people tend to see election as a spectacle, as entertainment, and not necessarily as something that's going to have material consequences to their lives. So I would begin, again, by simplifying the way we talk about elections and by grounding it very much not in the personalities, not in the people who are running. So, and this for me starts from the front pages. For me, starts from the conversations, the way we talk about politics, the way we analyze. This is precisely why I keep going back to why the analyst cannot position themselves as the possessor of all of knowledge, but actually just as position yourself as part of this community. And starting from that level, it's not about the big personalities. It is, how does this process actually affect my material condition? How does it affect my economic condition? The way we've thought about transparency, the way we've thought about accountability with electoral processes, we think that it starts and stops with me standing in line for 3 hours, I cast my ballot, and then I go home and
that's it.
That's it.
Your
my
duty is
done. But actually, if I go back to 2002, and I remember, for example, in Kajiado, where the voters voted and then the ballots were being transferred from the polling stations to the counting station, and it was a group of Morans who intercepted a box of a ballot box, and they opened it, and it was filled with clothes. It was on television. When I think about that whole scenario, I think about the role of the press in transmitting that story. I think about the role of those Morans in thinking, it's I need to know where this ballot box is going. I need to know that my vote is going to be counted. When I think about the conversations that came from that, that's the kind of accountability matrix that I want us to think about. When you have a tech-based election, it becomes hard to have that kind of accountability framework, because what do? Do I follow the iPad from my polling station all the way to the top? Like, how do I actually insert myself into that accountability matrix? Those are some of the questions that I think we have to think about. Where is the citizen in this tech-based election? Is our job just to vote and then go home and wait for the spectacle to play out? So, again, for me, it starts with shifting our conversation from voters as consumers of the political process to participants, as citizens, as people who are actually in this conversation. And where the tech problem comes in, as I've said, is precisely that. It creates this bigger distance between the citizen and the accountability problem. It becomes a conversation between experts. It becomes a conversation because what can I do? What can I do if what we saw, the one thing that we saw that I point out in the book that I think was really important, and a lot of people downplayed it, was the role of social media, of people going to their polling station, taking a picture of the results and saying the thing that's on RTS is not the thing that was posted at my polling station. Because what happened? You voted, and then it was put on that sheet, and then all the agents signed off and said, yeah, this is the correct tally. And then it was scanned and sent, but also... And also it was
transmitted on the wall.
Posted on the wall.
Posted on the wall, yes.
People, that is accountability. that is citizens being in the process. That is
Yes.
people saying, hey, hang on a second, kuna kitu hapa.
Yes.
So, but that Twitter is not built to do elections. Twitter is not an election function. So, my methodological question is therefore that. How do we formalize, how do we bring the citizen back into the conversation? This thing that happened informally, this thing that happened as a tangent, this thing that happened as unplanned. How do we bring that back into the
Can I answer
conversation?
your question for you now?
Sure.
You see, you have provided a solution, a possible solution. So it was possible all along. Was it
Me,
not?
I've asked a question.
The question has come at the end of it, and you've explained it well. The BBI seeks to do, among other things, present a parliamentary system of government. Probably the Westminster kind, probably a variation of it, but there's been that suggestion. And it's against this backdrop of our elections are the way they are is because we have had for the longest time an imperial presidency, and even with the current constitution, the competition for the position of presidency is what brings about all this mess that we see. Now, if the focus was on parliamentary votes, because it's parliamentary superiority that would then give you prime minister, would we then at least allay some of these issues or reduce some of the temperatures that we see in our elections?
I think it doesn't matter. If at the point we are talking about the electoral system itself, voting and accounting for that vote.
Accountability of those votes.
But
So
Eric,
it doesn't matter whether you're voting for an
it does.
MCA or for an MP.
It
It's
does.
not about the presidential
No,
that
it
has
does.
an issue.
Eric, it does.
How?
The fight for the presidency is what engineers, is what brings about everything we're discussing here. Because the prize, when one gets it, is considered to be so big in this country that people will do anything to try and ensure that they get it.
No, on a global scale, yes, because it
No, I'm talking about Kenya, not global.
Yes,
Kenyan.
I'm saying globally, Kenya on a
All
bigger
round,
scale,
right.
on an all-round scale, that is what appears to be the bigger thing. But go to the people who are contesting for MCA position, for MP position, for woman rep position. In each of those 6 ballots, there's an issue. And the issue is trust. Have I cast this ballot? Have I voted for the right person? Has my vote been tampered with?
The problem begins further up, Eric. It's not downstream. Downstream is a reflection of what happens up there.
No.
Do you really imagine, this thing, the correctness isn't going to be determined by how loud you say the word no.
Yes,
So-
and you are stating it like it's a fact, and I'm saying I am also stating mine like it's a fact.
No.
It's not that yours is a fact, City.
No,
No
it
way.
isn't that mine
And I
is-
am saying that just because you're saying that because
you are
have-
saying
you
it
have
louder,
presidential-
it doesn't also
you're
make it truer.
You're saying it's slower. It doesn't mean that because you're saying it's slower, it's truer. Look, you are saying that at the top level, and I'm saying
If
it's
you had
true.
allowed me to explain why I'm saying
It's
what
true.
I'm
There's
saying,
an issue at
perhaps.
the national level, but also let's also accept that it's with the system itself.
Are you aware
It's the
that I have not
electoral voting system
contradicted
itself.
what you're saying?
City, go.
I haven't actually contradicted what you're saying, but you seem determined that what I'm saying doesn't seem to make sense because today I've chosen to speak slowly. So let me speak loudly, okay?
And faster.
Voila.
And faster,
Okay.
okay? If you look at any electoral system, there is a prize that people are racing towards. There's something that they hope to gain. In our system, everything that we talk about has been for the longest time embedded in the presidency or the president or the post of the president. We talk about devolution and we talk about governors, but they take their cue from what we have for the longest time considered as the presidency. More or less an imperial position that cannot be questioned. And I'm saying the cue then, when you go downstream, follows from this. If I think I'm supporting a political party and I support the leader, I am assuming that the goodies I anticipate, if my person gets it, will be A, B, C, D. So I marshal all the resources I have to push and propel myself in this direction. That's what determines it. Do you really think, for instance, the numbers of people we have vying for seats of MCAs would be what it is if it hadn't been seen with clarity that when you're an MCA, you are entitled at some point to some grant, you can do the other. And at the same time, you can be corrupt. At the same time, you can have contracts and projects allocated to you. They wouldn't bother. People quit jobs to become MCAs because there's profit at the end of it. And where do they take the cue from? The very top. That really was my position.
I think the MCA position should be voluntary, but that's another story. I do think that the MCA position should be voluntary. They shouldn't be getting a salary. They shouldn't have budgets. They shouldn't have anything. I think it should be voluntary. If you want to be in government,
It's another conversation
leadership,
altogether.
do it.
Let's
Yeah.
continue the conversation at 29 minutes to 10 o'clock. So, CT Muga, I'll come and counter that in saying that, just because if we move from an imperial presidency and go into a parliamentary system, will that allay fears? That's what you had asked. And I'm telling you, no, it will not allay any fears. Because the thing is, you are voting.
Or even if we're looking at
Whether
then
you-
increasing or decreasing the amount of trust in the system, because at the end of the day, that's the crux of the matter, to say whatever system is used, it really then wouldn't really matter. Because if you've mistrusted it from the very beginning, whether a new one was brought today, tomorrow, you're still going to have a level of mistrust as a result of the things that have happened historically.
Yep. And Nanjala Nyabola, who's in the studio, of course, is coming out strongly as an anti-technology campaigner.
No, not even. Not even.
No.
Maybe
Not even a little bit.
I thought she.
Just to clarify, 28 minutes to 10 o'clock.
Technology.
28 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic and then the conversation continues. We'll also open up a phone line that's about a quarter to the top of the hour, so you can contribute to this. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi.
All
Traffic.
right, so the rains that we saw have affected the southern bypass, and then traffic has basically ground to a halt, not moving as quickly as we saw it before. So that's not an option that you can use right now. Of course, things have gotten a little better on Mombasa Road, so that means it's moving a lot smoother now. Thika Road as well, getting into the city centre. So things have basically cooled down. Langata Road is still where we still find a bit of problems in terms of traffic, but in a while it would have opened up. Yes, the rains have affected things quite a little bit, but officially out of traffic hour, so it's not as bad as we saw earlier. Be safe, folks. The roads are a little bit slippery, so approach with caution and, of course, exercise as much safety as you can. Spice FM KE, reach us on Twitter if you see anything out of the ordinary.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So what is the cause for the distrust and mistrust of our electoral system? What is it? What is it that makes everybody feel, well, not everybody, but the majority of the people who feel that there's something wrong?
The electoral
You introduce a new technology, there are questions that are going to emerge. And the questions are not emerging because they're emerging because of a trust. Why was this thing single-sourced? Does it mean that there's foul play here?
Somebody wants to manipulate it
yes,
and then use it for their own
is it-
selfish gains.
Who owns the technology?
Usually
Is
there
there
is.
foul play here?
I think that
Who's custodian of the data? Is there foul play here?
I think that an important part of this question is sequencing, and sequencing where the mistrust started. And I think that it's very easy now, in retrospect, to miss that the mistrust wasn't always there. In 2017, we were having the first, we had piloted a couple of things in 2013, but we were having the first full digital process in 2017. The mistrust wasn't always there. That people were actually ready. People gave this new system a fair shot and said, you know what, let's see if it works. And the mistrust it starts off, as I said, from did the procurement go according to the plans? Did the announcement of the results, come according to plan? The person who was in charge of overseeing the system shows up dead 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before the election. That's going to make people mistrust the process. The people didn't come off just from the beginning and say, well, we reject this thing and send it back. We don't want it because it's inherently bad. And this is why I keep going back to look at the way in which, look at the people, look at the society, look at the context in which the technology was deployed to understand why the mistrust happened in the first place. It was the context in which the technology was rolled out, was deployed, that started to raise questions. Not necessarily.
The issue that I see, though, is that we start raising the questions at the end. Procurement happens, there are no questions, not as loudly as you see them later. And then people are told, come, let's register as voters. You turn up, you go and register as voters, you give out your biometric information. You're not asking at this point who's going to hold this information. You're okay with that. You go and vote, the gadget is working, you participate, you pick your paper, you put it in the box, it's counted. Okay with that. transmission starts happening, you're okay with that at some point, and then all those questions that you've been having at the back of your mind start emerging.
But again, to me, this comes back to a broader issue about participation and citizen participation. And one thing that we've seen, especially over the last 7 years, is that the state does not take the job or the process of public participation seriously enough. It is for bureaucrats. It is for the people who are, forget the politicians and the noisemakers at the top. It is for the bureaucrats in government to make sure to facilitate that public participation.
How do we
so
do-
for example, when we're having a law about procurement being passed, or new regulations about procurement being passed, it is up to the bureaucrats. The IEBC has offices in every county, at the very least. I think in many constituencies, but definitely in every county. I know that in some places the public participation happened to a much greater extent than it did in others. That there are people, the IABC bureaucrats, the people, the unseen faces who went down up to the village level and sat down with people and said, this is what we're doing that's new, this is why we need you to participate. But the voter education, for example, didn't start until the very end, right? That is a failure of public participation. That is a failure of bringing people along to the process of governance. And again, to me, this goes back to a broader question of, if we had simpler processes, would it be easier to communicate those to the ordinary people and to get those ordinary people to participate much more effectively in the in the building of the systems, in the building of the electoral systems? And again, that's a much broader procedural question, but it's something to think about. Because if we spent 6 weeks trying to explain the 6-piece voting system, and still in the end it didn't quite land the way it was supposed to, because there were places where people didn't think that they needed to vote for a president, that they already voted for a guy at MCA. Why am I voting again? Are people missing the broader, bigger question of, okay, actually, it's not, I don't just need you on August 8th. I need you from, 2015 when I'm passing the procurement, you as a citizen, from when I'm thinking about procurement, when I'm thinking about IBC regulations, I need you to come to a public forum and sit under this tree and help me figure out the best way to source the system for you. And that's a bureaucratic question. That's a civil servant question. That's a procedural question that has everything to do with the way in which we don't do public participation in this country.
I think we can keep asking questions, but at this point it's very clear that we need to land this plane and say, obviously there's something wrong, right? And say then now moving from there's certain things or suggestions that can be made in terms of what needs to be done. Otherwise, I think we run the risk of continually asking questions and then saying, okay, because there's some people who need to be led. There are very many people who need to be led and will not ask themselves this question. They will
participate.
Or even participate, but they will ask at the point that something goes wrong, or that they have the perception that something has gone wrong. But at that point is when they will ask.
And what they're seeking is assurance.
At that point, or even an answer in terms of, okay, if we did it wrong previously, what then do we need to do it right? And I think I do agree that there needs to be a collective answer, but some of those things need to start being thrown into the ring.
You're asking how the government can remedy the feeling of betrayal
over the people
and abandonment, because that's what happens when you prolong mistrust. Remember, we're talking about doubting, general doubting. We haven't gotten the position where there's a complete absence of trust. Okay? If this is prolonged, that's when you have anxiety. That's when you have, at the complete end,
suspicion,
self-doubt. Now, you asked what happens. The process of elections contribute to something. It gives us political leaders. And what these political leaders do bring about what you have referred to as mistrust, because of the broken promises. And you actually get the impression that the one thing you can rely on from politicians is to break their promise. It's like the guarantee that you have.
If I may, another election that happened that was quite interesting. I look at elections all over the world for various reasons. And another election in the region that happened that was quite interesting was the Democratic Republic of Congo, because this was supposed to be the first major election, again, major political transition. This guy has been in power for so long, it looked like he wasn't going to leave. And you look at how they process the idea of accountability. The biggest election observation mission in the DRC was run by the Catholic Church, because they have the biggest network in the country. So they have parishes, they have people who are able to volunteer their time to go down and verify results and things like that. They had a parallel tallying system. They had they had, before the election commission in the DRC announced the results, they had already assembled all of these results. And they said, you know what, because we are an institution that has public trust, because we're an institution that people come to every week and they believe and they participate, we're going to run this process completely free of charge, not free of charge, but completely voluntarily. And we're going to hold on to these results as leverage on the electoral commission, on the government, and say, you know what, we're not going to announce our results. We're going to give you the first swing. To do it properly, to do it in an accountable way, in a transparent way. And then if that doesn't go correctly, then we'll release our results. What ended up happening is that the government switched off the internet for almost 2 weeks.
And the Catholic Church hasn't considered this, had they?
Cut it off at the knees. Now, when you look at what happened in the DRC and you look at what happened in Kenya, what are the stories that emerge? One is, where was Kenyan civil society? Because the church is part of civic society. The mosques are part of civic society. They're part of everything that happens outside government.
Yes.
Where was the civil society during our election? Where was the observation mission? The observation mission told us everything is fine. Mm-hmm. Everything's gone great. What are you guys complaining about? Because the standard for elections in Africa is not free, fair, transparent. What's in our constitution? The standards that foreigners have for elections in Africa is, did anybody die?
There was no conflict.
It's a much lower. It's a much lower standard.
Absolutely.
Because
no one died.
Because
Nobody
it's
died.
Africans.
Yeah. There was no kind of gunfire.
Okay.
Gunfire. It is all
it's
right.
okay.
Right.
You see, that's another question that that's another thing that needs to be put on the table. What happens again when we compare these two results? The process in the DRC, they tried to do a bit of tech, but fundamentally the process was get people out, get people to vote, get people to go home safely. There was a big procedural issue with Eastern Congo, which again reminds me of what happened in northeastern Kenya, because in Eastern Congo it's worse. There's conflict, there's outright conflict. People were in entire big provinces were unable to come out and vote. Look at what happened in northeastern Kenya. There were no election observers in northeastern. In the 57% of the Kenya's landmass is Turkana, Marsabit, Wajir, Mandera, Garissa. There were no international election observers in any of those counties. None. Right? The only people who were there, who were on the ground, Nisisi, the civic society, the local observers, right, through their networks. So when I looked at the parallels between the DRC election and the Kenya election, what I thought was, we had our election, once you put together the tech and everything, ended up costing us $28 per head. It was the most expensive election. Up to that point, it was the most expensive election in the world, right? Did we get value for money? Could there have been a simpler way of doing this? Are there things that could have done to address trust that was cheaper, simpler, much more effective? For example, the way they use the church systems that could have addressed some of these questions so that we could have at least saved $6 per head on the back end, right? Is there a way that citizens could have, because I'm thinking about groups like Lucha RDC, I'm thinking about citizen mobilization that happened to go and escort people. I was an election volunteer in the 2012 US election. People get escorted to make sure that their ballots go into the box, right? Are there these other things that could have been done to address this trust deficit that didn't necessarily say we're abdicating any intellectual labor and we're throwing it on the tech? We're abdicating any philosophical labor about thinking about our society and throwing it on the tech. Please.
Our election has never had a problem with what you're discussing. The actual process of voting, people vote.
I would disagree.
No.
Mombasa 1997, Molo 1992, Trans Nzoia 1992, Mombasa again in 2007. When people instigate violence to disrupt voting,
they're interrupting the
vote.
Yes, they are. They are. When there's mass movement of people because of those disruptions, they are. But in the absence of that sort of disruption, which is deliberately engineered, do we actually just go and vote?
Do people come out to vote?
But that's exactly what I'm talking. In the DRC, in Eastern Congo, we had an uptick in violence precisely around the election, precisely because this is an opposition stronghold, to get people not to go to the ballot box. This is a strategy that has been deployed not just in Congo, but here, since 1992, 1997, 2007, the whole strategy of starting election violence,
Ethnic-
of ethnic
tribal
conflict,
violence.
of paying people to go and intimidate people. That is precisely what it does.
2007, the problem erupted
After the election.
That is a common.
no.
That is a
After the
common
result,
started
That is a
before.
common misperception. That is a common misperception.
In all and grown in all
10
these
people were
places.
killed. 10 people were
Before the
killed
election.
in. I want to say
In Masai land.
because
It
of
was in Masai land.
Yeah. So the problem. 2007. What happened in 2007 between December 2007 and April 2008 was a culmination of a multi-year process that began with the referendum.
Yeah.
Was a culmination of things that had been building up since that referendum didn't go the way the government wanted it to go. When we think about, then this is another broader, again, issue with the way we think about the start-stop way that we think about politics in Kenya. So we've divided the last 25 years into multiple eras. We have the 1992 to 97 era, we have the 2002 era, we have the 2005 to 2007 era, then we have the post-2007 era.
What was the 2002 era?
The good election, quote unquote, the one that went, people voted
Between 2002 and 2005.
more left and we were all happy.
How many
and
electoral cycles have we had in this country?
since 1990, we've had 5.
And how many have been marred by violence and movement of people?
4.
So,
92, 97.
Yes.
2007,
So as a
2017, and then
percentage.
2013 to a less extent.
So we're saying the vast majority of our voting processes, people have actually voted. I'm not talking about everything that surrounds it. I'm talking about people actually going to vote. Let me explain why I'm pointing this out.
Please.
Because there are people who will claim, if I leave the violence, that even the process of actually taking people to vote, that in itself is interfered with. Yes, violence does that on a larger scale.
But can I tell you, I'm gonna rebut that with 2 propositions.
Yes.
One is we cannot ignore that violence if the nexus between the violence and is overlaps directly with the election. If the reason why violence is being instigated is to disrupt the election, then the violence is part of
Yes,
that
certainly.
process. So we
I
can't
agree.
disaggregate those 2 things. They're completely connected. But the second proposition I would put on the table is the feminist one, which is how do women experience political processes in Kenya? Can 51% of this population, everyone confidently say that they're able to wake up in the morning on voting day, get dressed and go to the ballot box and cast their vote freely? Because that is part of the conversation. The fact that in a lot of the parts of this country that there was this, you have this thing when you register to vote, there's that box that you tick where you say, I need assistance and I need someone to come into the ballot box with me. Many of the people who are ticking that box are women who have been disadvantaged, for example, from having access to education, whatever, and their husbands go into the polling station with them and cast their ballot with them. That's also part of the conversation. That's also part of disrupting the way in which people vote.
So if you want to actually take this discussion to its nth, then why don't we start with the nominations of political parties as to who is actually going to represent these parties? Because the very thing you are discussing is also evidenced when political parties have their nominations or elections or whatever it is they call
So
it.
the entire process
We're being
basically.
played out, but the music is playing us out. But I would definitely like to answer that
The
question.
entire process. It's 11 minutes to
Oh,
10
that's time.
o'clock.
Yeah.
The conversation continues, of course. We have Nanjala Nyabola, who's a writer and a political analyst, is in the studio. We're discussing our electoral system.
The 90s have never sounded so
Our
good.
favorite songs of the 1990s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, Nanjala, you are to respond.
I was going to say I agree with you completely. I think one of this start-stop way in which we analyze and think about our political process is definitely part of the problem. Nominations are part of the problem, but we are conditioned to start thinking about elections from the week before the election or for 2 weeks before the election, when really all of much of the mischief happens at the nominations phase, happens within the party. And to go back to the word that you put into the table, the integrity of our political parties and the way in which our political parties understand the primaries and the process of primaries and what it is that they're doing this for. From philosophical point of view, one thing that I always try to do is look at political processes from the perspective of the people who have the least power in them, from the people who have the least ability to influence outcomes. So I think about, how do women experience nominations processes in Kenya? How do people with disabilities experience nomination processes in Kenya? And that will give you an indication of everything that goes wrong with our nomination processes. You could be a woman, you could be the best candidate, you could have had everything go according to plan. And then you get to your political party headquarters and they tell you your certificate was taken by someone else. You could be a disabled person and have like the best ideas and have the best networks, everything. And then you get to your nomination phase and you're not even able to participate because the materials are not designed to include you in the process. So I absolutely agree. We have to start, if we're going to think completely and holistically about fixing the way we do elections, we have to start with the political parties. We have to start with the primaries. We have to start with the nomination process.
So the political class.
It seems to me that that's exactly, I was going to go to the political class, and since it's clear that they cannot be involved in this process.
No, political leadership
Political
class,
leaders,
because
right.
voters, thugs, hoodlums, those are part of the political yes.
But the leadership cannot be involved in this process, because if anything, we understand very clearly that information is power. And then at this point, if you know that you're putting the power back in the hands of the people, you don't want that process. So it seems to me, for talking about the clamor and agitation for some kind of change, for political participation, for education and things like that, for people to actually know this system or process that they're getting involved in, can we really involve the people who are manipulating it at that point?
Well, I'm sort of divided between my pragmatic side and my philosophical side. On my philosophical side, I want us to get to the point where we say we are running these things for ourselves. I don't need the stamp of authority from so-and-so from his residence in Karen or so-and-so from his residence in Muthaiga, that I'm actually part of this political process for myself. At the pragmatic level, I get stuck because I think our political discourse hasn't gotten to the point where people are able to detach completely from power in that way. And I'll give you just a very easy sort of day-to-day example. When you have a funeral, can you fathom having a funeral in this country and saying, local politicians, so you're not invited?
I can fathom it.
See, I can, because I can it, because for me it's like,
not only fathom, it's not invited, but you will not be allowed to speak.
You'll not be exactly. Yeah. It's like for me, I would want that.
I can see that happening.
But you know, I
have seen it happen.
You remember when the lady told the local politician, I don't remember this clip, I saw this clip going around, went up and told the politician finish because we want to go home. And then what was the caption that was shared? Rudely interrupts politician. You see, there's something like, again, the pragmatic side of me is like, okay, but who are we
without them?
I think we should. I have this problem a lot in the organizing work that I do. I say, let's just do it by ourselves. Let's organize ourselves, and then we do, and then on the day of, I'm told, oh, by the way, we invited MCA so and so. Oh, by the way, we invited MP so-and-so. Oh, by the way, we invited Minister so-and-so. And say, why?
To give it some kind of weight.
To give it some kind... We wait. You know, there's a way in which we have understood the role of politicians in legitimizing our very existences that I think makes this idea of detaching power from the way we think about political processes a little bit difficult to comprehend in the short term. But in the long term, I definitely think this is something that we should be working towards. I think that's where we need to just stop inviting them to your things.
And I see that as our main problem. Where our trust starts beating us, it's because of that, because we've elevated the politicians.
They are
to
the
that
be
level.
all and end all of everything.
They're
If
the
you look at
socialites.
that, and going by what CT was saying, just looking at it without looking at it from the previous days prior to the election, on that election day, people get up, they trust that they're going to cast their ballot and their vote will count. People have faith in the system. Yeah. People walk back home, they have faith in the system until the politician starts making noise and telling you, look, our vote has been manipulated. The system has been manipulated. And that's when now we start thinking, oh my goodness, yes. And because we trust that politician at that point, we are agreeing with him. And whatever question the politician is asking, we are seeing it make sense at this point. Whereas before that, I trusted.
I would rebut that a little bit. I think we sort of end up at the same place, but we're on different journeys. Because I would say that, again, 79.1% of the electorate out of 19.2 million people showed up to stand in line for 3 hours on August 8th. When we did the November 2nd poll, the official results, which are also contested, brought that number to 38. So half the people who voted in August did not vote again in November. I go back to people's trust started to fray. I think people's trust in this new process started to fray the day Chris Musando showed up dead. I think that's when things started to fall apart.
Doubts were planted.
Because this is the person who, the day he went missing, was on television telling us, trust me. Trust my system. Trust this thing that I'm building. Here is how it's going to work. Don't worry. And then, 24 hours later, shows up dead. That is I think for me, that's where things started to go wrong. And to go back to the previous point, it should have started to go wrong much further back. It should have started with the procurement process. It should have started with the nominations process.
And when we say it should have started, is when questions should have started being asked
But
at that point.
But I think that again goes back to how we think about our place in public participation, how we receive and consume and process information about the way in which we're being governed. Is it a public information problem?
No.
Is it?
The no is, it's an amalgam of problems.
Exactly.
It isn't one thing. And also, we complain about our politicians, but we're also complicit in what they do. If we didn't, everything we've been saying wouldn't happen, because we actually support this process. On the one hand, we say they are the devil incarnate.
But then
on
we
the other
ask them
hand,
to come and give
we
way
also welcome
things,
them and embrace them.
Active participants. Nanjala Nyabola, thank you very much for joining us. So you can tell us about the book and what you've said. What's the conclusion on the book?
Buy the book.
Buy the book. It's really good. I'm biased. I know the writer.
No.
No. It's it's a conversation about where we are as a country, but also I think it's a global conversation about where political processes are. What's the future of the election? What's the future of voting? What's the future of how our political processes are going to look? I wrote Kenya as a case study because Kenya has been the subject of my political analysis for a long period of time. But I think it's a global story that we have to start thinking more completely about what the role of politics is going to, what the role of technology, is going to be in our social and political lives. I think it's written in a very conversational manner. It's a conversation that I hope to start. As I said, I don't see myself as an ivory tower, thinking sort of, I've got the answers, here you go, absorb them. But I hope what it has done is it's triggered a process of asking the right questions about the future of this space.
Indeed. And well done on taking that initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, for joining us in this conversation. This situation comes to an end for the week. See you. Today's Friday, right? Yes.
No, sorry.
See you next week on Monday. Today is Valentine's Day. This is what's going to be happening this afternoon on Spice FM. John, can you show that? Well, there you go. See that? That's Monique. Join her between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. The Valentine's edition on Spice FM, Spice Drive. She'll be here, of course, and then the adults in the room will also be here with the adult stuff for Valentine's. Between now and then, some lovely music cruising through the golden years of the 80s and 90s. See you. Say goodbye.